Okay, so it is 11:03, and once again, I want to say good morning and welcome to day two of our Farm Financial Literacy Train the Trainer program. This opportunity is made possible to us by the United States Department of Agriculture, Office of Partnerships and Public Engagement, in collaboration with the Southern Rural Development Center at Mississippi State University. And as always, we want to thank them for making this opportunity available so that this training is being offered at no cost to you. I also want to take the time to say Happy Veterans Day to all of our veterans who may be online and just say thank you for your service. Unfortunately, for some of us, it is not a holiday, so we are still working on Veterans Day. So I appreciate each and every last one of you for taking time for coming back on day two. So let's kind of recap what happened yesterday. Yesterday, we had several different presentations focusing on the needs of our farmers. And before I go directly into what happened yesterday, I want to give you guys some things to think about as we move forward. The reason why this training is being made available because there is a need for our farmers to do better in the area of their finances from many different perspectives. At the end of the day, we want to make sure that our farmers stay in business because if it's not for them, we don't eat. So the farmers play a significant role in our economy. So there are things that we need to put in place to help support them, especially those of us who are in the extension field. Yesterday, I did a quick poll to see how many individuals already had programs going on in their state, and roughly 63% of this audience already had something going on, but there was still about 23% that didn't offer anything for their farmers. That's something that concerns me individually as an extension person, as an extension professional, and I would like to see us move towards there being programs in all 50 states and territories for our farmers because of the role that they play in their economy. So, with the topics that we are presenting to you over the next 3 days, these are some key focus areas where our farmers fall short. And it's not only about the money. Mr. McCarty talked to us yesterday about the business plan. The business plan is not only a tool used to get finances, but it's also a tool that's used to chart the business's course, capturing their mission, their vision, their goals, things that are very important to them that they need to be reminded of as they move forward in their venture. So, recapping yesterday, we had an awesome presentation from Mr. Brooks and Mr. Bowley as it relates to their FSA loan programs. They also categorize themselves as America's lender of first opportunity. And one of the things that Mr. Brooks mentioned in his presentation was that in some cases where farmers cannot get traditional financing from banks, FSA is an opportunity that might be able to extend credit to help farmers get the funding that they need. He also taught us about their guaranteed programs as well as their direct plant programs, in addition to their farm storage and their facility loans. They also went over the loan closing documents, which I think is very, very important, especially for those of you who are thinking about putting together a training program in your state. It's important that you, as trainers, can convey to your farmers and to your audience what they are signing when they go to closing. I have heard here in our state, I was just so happy to get the loan, I just signed. That's not acceptable. Farmers need to be educated on what they're putting their John Hancock on. And as extension educators, we need to take that time. They also shared, Mr. Bowley also talked about the opportunity for outreach and opportunities that you could use FSA for. When you are putting together your program and you want to talk about and highlight what USDA Farm Service Agency offers, I think it's very important that you reach out to your local FSA office and establish a relationship and invite them in. I think it's a wonderful partnership. I don't think it is your responsibility as a trainer to try to memorize all of this information. Partnering with FSA and other USDA professionals, I think would be a win-win. We also had an awesome presentation from Mr. McCarty on the role of the business plan and how to put that together. We also had a presentation on budgeting, record keeping, and then we closed out with farm inventory done by Ms. Banks. So those were 5 key areas that we wanted to highlight on day 1. Now I want to put a poll out. Catherine, if you're ready. My first poll question is the question that asks, based on the information that you were exposed to yesterday, which topic do you feel like you would be most comfortable teaching? And you can choose all that applies. So I'm going to give you guys a minute to go ahead and start. Okay. So I'm going to, so most folks feel like the business planning piece was the winner, followed by record keeping. Okay. The next question is, based on the information that was presented yesterday, which topic would you possibly be more comfortable inviting someone in to teach that topic for the program? And I'm gonna leave this open for 1 minute. So our winner is having someone to come in to present about USDA FSA programs. Not surprised by that answer. And let me close this out. So the key takeaway is that as you guys develop your programs, if there's a topic area where you're not comfortable, feel free to invite others in. The whole point of this training is not to make you an expert in all areas. When you think about the budgeting piece, for those of us working in extension, possibly bringing in somebody from Family Consumer Sciences to assist with that area is also another option. But the more professionals that you can bring in to educate our farmers, I think the better off our economy is going to be as a whole. Are there any questions that anybody has at this time before I give you the agenda for today? Feel free to use the chat box. And Mr. McCarty, I don't know if Mr. Brooks is on. There's a lot of squares. Oh, I do see Mr. Brooks. There was a question asked yesterday that I missed in the chat box. And the question was, is a one-page business plan acceptable? So I will defer to either one of my FSA colleagues or Mr. McCarty to respond back to that question for the audience. Go ahead, Mr. McCarty. You turned up I can hear you. And I see Rocky coming on.
It would be almost, I'm not going to use the term impossible, but it's going to be very difficult to come up with all of the information that a lender is going to require for a typical loan, and all of it be summarized on one page. Now, in the business plan, you have what they call an executive summary, where you would summarize all of this information in one place. But for just one page, I'm not aware that of a document that would capture all of that information.
Okay. Mr. Brooks?
Yes, I agree with Mr. McCarthy. The most summary, a one-pager in general business practices today to provide a one-pager, a summary or overview of whatever the business objectives are. So it'll be most prudent to do that. But as far as a business plan, no, it's going to be way more extensive than one page.
And I don't mean to put either one of you on the spot, but a typical business plan, how many pages? What would it kind of look like? Is this a 25-page, 50-page thesis?
It actually depends on the type of operation and how involved or how detailed it is. It's going to determine that. And I use an example, and we said earlier, FSA has a youth loan program. It's on about a couple of pages. But then when you start getting into your typical operating, farm ownership, guarantee type loans, you can have, 25 pages probably would be a minimum if you count all your supporting documentation.
Okay. So as an extension educator, which many of us are, we can help our farmers per se put together a business plan to kind of make sure that they're hitting the key points. Okay.
Yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. McCarty. Thank you, Mr. Brooks. So for today, we're going to be focusing on credit management. We're going to be focusing on insurance, wills and estate planning, and then we're going to have two separate testimonies today from farmers. And the reason I wanted to bring farmers into the mix is because as you guys are doing your programs, it's important for your audience to hear from themselves, if that makes sense. And I wanted to hear farmers from Mississippi kind of share how beneficial the information is and how beneficial it could be when you're putting together your own information, well, your own program in your respective state/community. So with that being said, and I am monitoring the chat box, Diana says, is the FSA providing training to the against on community supported agriculture? This was an issue in the past for us since it was something different. And Diana, if I just killed what you were trying to say, feel free to unmute yourself.
Yes, I misspelled agent and I put against. Agent. Is the FSA office updating their officers, loan officers, on the process of CSA, since that is what a lot of the new farmers are doing, and it is different than what they're used to?
Okay. Mr. Brooks, Mr. Bowley, are either one of you still? Okay, Rodney, I see you unmuted yourself.
Yes. Well, we all know that although the FSA is a government entity, each individual state, each individual district does things differently, even though we have overall rules and regulations to dictate how we do our business. In most recent years, there's been definitely a concerted effort and outreach on our staff to train them about differences in agriculture. And CSAs has become very popular over the past few years. So a broad answer, I would say most officers should be aware of the type of opportunities that CSA provide and be able to lend some type of guidance from an FSA perspective when it comes to lending to CSAs. But again, you know, there's a certain degree of autonomy to these local states, these local offices in these different states. So I would encourage you to get with your local loan officials, and if they're not on board, to sort of get them to see the way, so to speak. And if not, reach out to the district directors or the state farm loan chiefs to make sure that it's a priority in your area.
Thank you, Mr. Brooks. And I don't see, Diana, did that answer your question? You can type in the chat, but okay, yeah, okay, good. So with that said, we're going to go ahead and get this morning started off with credit management. And that is going to be done by our lovely Carolyn Banks. And I am getting ready to pull up your presentation. Carolyn, are you ready?
Good morning, everyone. Going back to what Mr. McCarty was mentioning yesterday when he was talking about the business plan and the slide that was in reference in bringing dollars, leaving dollars on the table. We found that there are many things that one of the main reasons that dollars are left is because of participants or applicants are not able to get a loan because of their credit. So this is one of the reasons why we are bringing the credit management to the table. And today, these are some of the objectives that I will talk about: defining credit, what is a credit report? There are advantages and disadvantages of credit. I'll talk about the three major credit bureaus that we have. Also, we'll talk about credit scoring. What is a credit score? How you gonna dispute your errors that are on your report? And there are ways that you can build a better credit report, and also how to choose a credit counselor. So this is what these are the objectives that I will be talking about. Next slide, please.
Yes, ma'am.
What is credit? Credit is the ability to borrow money with the agreement to pay it back at a later date. And this goes back in reference to our farmers when they're going in. I just use the FSA as an example. FSA being the lender and the farmer being the borrower. They made an agreement to pay back this money at a certain date and time. And this is basically what the credit is. Now, the credit report is actually, it's a statement that has all the information that's on the credit report. And on the credit report is the credit activity, that's their past credit history as well as their current history. Now, the way the presentation is set up in question form. So the reason I put it in question form, because normally when farmers, a lot of time, you'll be surprised when people actually don't know anything about a credit report until they go into the office and decide that they have to pull a credit. And even when we are doing training in Mississippi, when you have the second and third generations, and all they know is they go into the office and then after the training, they find out a lot more about what is about the credit and how the credit scores are done. So this is another main reason that why we are talking about credit as well. Now, also, you have 3 credit bureaus that we're going to talk about. And the 3, we have Equifax, we have TransUnion, and Experience. Those are the 3 credit reportings that we have. And how do you get a free credit report? Well, actually, there's 3 different ways that you can get a free credit report. And you'll be surprised that the farmers that's in Mississippi, or even people just talking in general, that is not aware that they're entitled to a free credit report from each credit bureau per year for at least every 12 months. There are 3 ways. You can go to the next slide.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, here are the 3 ways. You could either get it online and you have the online information. You could also use by phone, or you can do it by mail. Now, what's presented before you is actually the central website, which is for all 3 of them. But you see the individual. You can do it individually from Experience, Equifax, and TransUnion. But that is the address and the telephone number and the online. Now, you can go to the next slide. I want to talk about some facts of people as American, where we stand at as far as when it comes to credit. The average American credit card balance is $6,194. Now, this just as of the second quarter of 2019. So this is recent. Okay, the total credit card balances in the United States are $893 billion. And that's in the first quarter of this year of 2020. Americans are collectively using 23% of their available credit line. Americans currently have 511.4 million credit cards. And of course, we know that's a lot of credit cards. But 61% Americans consumers has at least 1 credit card. But on an average, the average American has at least 4. Approximately 9.1 of all credit card balances that's in the United States were 90 days or more delinquent at the first quarter of this year. So that we can tell just by the facts here that there is an issue with having credit. And that's what we want to make sure that people understand the importance of credit, and when you're going into the various lenders and being denied and why you're being denied. Next slide, please. Here is just a sample of a credit report, and this credit report is actually Experience. Now, each credit bureau have their own, basically set up their own style, but all of them basically have it's set up in the same way as far as having the same information, but they are different. Now, a credit report is actually a record of credit activities. Your credit report is going to list any credit cards, accounts, or loans that you might have. It also lists the balances that you have. On your credit report, it'll show whether you're paying your credit cards on time, if you're making your payments on time or not. And it also shows against you when you're not paying them. So if you're being late, actually you'll see on your credit report, it might show a 30, a 60, a 90-day late, but all that information is actually on your credit report. So this is just a sample of just one of them. Next slide. But there are some advantages and disadvantages of having credit, and I'll just list a few things that are the advantage of having credit. One thing is that you can get things right then and there. You don't have to worry about carrying cash with this day and time because of theft and everything. A lot of people don't like to carry cash, so they like the asset of having a credit card. Also, having credit card kind of like give you a record of what you're being purchased. So when you want to go back, you can actually see, and during the tax time, when it's time to do your taxes, you already have a listing of actually all the things that you bought. So this will come at a handy time. And then really it's just more convenient using your credit card versus writing checks. And then most time, a lot of people, instead of carrying cashes and having a lot of different cards, what they'll do, they'll consolidate all their business, all their cards into one. And what they'll do now, the downside of consolidating your bills into one is to make sure that you don't go and get additional credit. Now, the disadvantages of having credit is because of high interest. Now we know that everybody, your credit is basically based on your credit score. So according to what your credit score is, then when you're trying to get borrowed from different lenders, the interest is going to be high. So there will be a disadvantage. And most times there are additional fees. If you look on there, they have a lot of additional fees. And also another disadvantage, it increases your impulse for buying. When you know that you have money available, especially if you're a shopper. I just use that example, and I just say most time, especially when it comes to us females, and you know, when you're an impulse shopper, then we tend to spend more versus if we didn't have the money. So that's another disadvantage. Next slide, please. What information do you need to provide to get a free credit report? It's really basic information. Of course, you're going to have to provide your name, your address, your social security number, and a date of birth. Now, if you moved in the past 2 years, so say, you probably want to provide the previous address, because the Nationwide Credit Reporting Company is going to may ask you certain questions that only you provide. And that's another thing as far as getting your credit report over the phone. They usually ask you things that only you would know. So if you have information like loan, like if you have had a loan or a credit card in the past, you need to have that information available, like the loan number and whatever was assigned to you, because only you would know that information. So that's one thing that you would have to keep in mind. Why would you want a copy of your report? Well, the main reason that you would want a copy of your credit report is to make sure that all the information that's on your credit report is accurate and complete and it's up to date, because you don't want to wait till you go to a lender and you want to borrow money, and then that's going to hold you up from getting your loan. And then especially if it's something negative on your report, it might be one of the reasons for your loan being denied. So you want to make sure that you know what's on your credit report. Now, how long does it take to get a report after you order it? Well, I mentioned earlier that there was 3 ways that you could get your report: online, If you get it online, if you request it online, if you give the right information, you can get it immediately access. But therefore, and other than that, you can use telephone. Now you got to think in terms of when they process it and allow the time for them to mail it, which we talked about processing and mail it, which would be probably within the 15 days. Now, if you mail and request the information, you got to allow the mail to get there for them to process it and for it to return to you. So the process and the mail, you're still talking about additional 15 days from that. But those are the 3 ways that you can get a copy of your free credit report. Now, there are situations where that you're eligible to get a free credit report. Now, according to the federal law, you're entitled to a free credit report, which is every 12 months. If you're denied credit, if someone denied you credit, whether it was insurance company or employment, you have the right, and they have 60 days to give you in writing for your reason for being denied. Now, if you're receiving federal assistance, just say if you're receiving funds from, just say, the welfare, or you've been a victim of fraud or identity theft, you're entitled to a free credit report. Now, there might be some additional fees if you request for more than that credit report, but you're entitled to that credit report for those reasons. Next slide. Should you order a report from each of the 3 nationwide credit reporting companies? That's a decision that you would have to make, but I would say yes. And the reason I say yes is because all 3 bureaus have information, but they're getting information from all different sources. So their sources doesn't mean that all of them are going to be the same. So what you would want to do is get each one and do a comparison to make sure that the information that's on all of them are accurate. And then if it's not, then you have the opportunity to dispute that information. Should you order your report from all 3 companies at the same time? Again, that's your decision. I suggest that you would not order it all at the same time, that you would probably order order one, maybe 3 months, wait late next 3 or 4 months in another one, because you still, because of the time period, and give you the opportunity again to compare that information. What if you find errors or inaccuracies or incomplete information on your credit report? Okay, because of the fair credit reporting, both the credit reporting company and your provider, they're responsible for giving correct information. So anytime there is any incomplete information that's on your credit report, you want to make sure you want to request it in writing, letting them know that there's some inaccuracies, and also you want to provide the information showing them the inaccuracy, because you have to allow them and give them the opportunity to investigate, and not only to investigate. So if they find that it's not true what they find, if they find that it is the information is correct, then of course you know that you're still entitled to pay whatever that item is that you're complaining that it's not true on your credit report. So you still, you do to pay on that credit report. Next slide. What can you do if the credit reporting company or information provider will not correct the information you dispute? Well, first of all, you will want to request a statement to be placed in your file for further use or further reference, because in the future, you're going to be ordering other reports. So you want to make sure that that statement is provided to anyone that you have disputed, that you're saying that that item is not yours, and make sure that a copy is placed in your file with your credit report. Now, how long can a credit reporting company report negative information on your credit report? Well, for negative information, it's usually 7 years. But if you file bankruptcy usually is up to 10 years. Anytime there's a judgment on your you're reporting a lawsuit or a judgment that you haven't paid, then they're allowed to keep that information on your credit report at least up to 7 years. Next slide, please. Can anyone else get a copy of your credit report? Okay, now, the only way someone can get a copy of your credit report, first of all, you have to give them permission. But when you're dealing with creditors, insurers, employees, and any other business, someone is trying to determine whether to give you credit or not, once you go in there and apply with an application, when you sign that application, you're also signing that you give them the information, the right to contact those bureaus to make sure that see what's on your credit report. So that's how that determination. So the only way they can get it is you have to sign for it. Now, there are certain things that you want to look for on your credit report and to make sure that your credit report is what it's supposed to be. Inquiries that's on there. Anytime you have, sometimes, we don't view our credit report. You have addresses on there that might not be yours, because a lot of time you'll be amazed that they have information from other people that's on your credit report, especially if you share the same name. You would think they would go by Social Security number, but not necessarily so. So anytime there's some inactive accounts of activities that's still active on your account, or some things that you're unaware of that's on your credit report, but just look on there, review anything that's not yours that's on that credit report. You want, at that time, you want to dispute it, because when you get ready to apply for something, it might hurt you. So you want to make sure that you clear it up prior to you applying for any loan. Next slide. Now let's talk about the credit history and what is your credit history. Basically, your credit history really describes how you use your money, so to speak. It talks about your credit history, tell how many credit cards you have, how many loans you have. It also describes and tells whether you're paying these loans or these bills on time. So if you have a credit card or a loan from a bank, you have credit history. So what the company does is collect this information about your credit cards and about your loans. And they share this information, how you pay your bills. And what they do, they put all this information into one location. And this one location, this is how it ends up being your credit report. So all this information goes in, it's just like all of it going into one bank. Now, what's your payment history includes, where what's in your history is going to include all the accounts that you, whether you agreed or not agreed to pay for. So that history in there. If any type of negative public records, any collections, any delinquent account, everything that you have that you apply for should be in your credit report. That's why it's so important that you make sure that things that are not yours, that you make sure you eliminate it. Next slide. Now here we have a credit history. Which parts of the credit history are most important? Of course, we know all of them are important, but what's carrying the most weight here is your payment history. And it talks about your payment history is at least 35%. So you see your credit type is 10%, new credit is 10%. So how long you've had your credit also counts for 15%, and anything that is old is 30%. So it's important that what you owe, that you make sure that you pay it, because it goes into that payment history. Next slide. Here we talk about what is a credit score. A credit score is actually a number that helps to evaluate how much of a risk it is to lend you money. we call it have you ever heard of the FICO score? What FICO score is, the Fair Isaac Company. And they have these numbers that are ranged. These numbers are between 300 and 850. So when you get your credit score is going to be ranged between that 300 and 850. And that's how they determine what your credit worthy is. And so you see that if you're looking at this tree, you see grow your credit score where you're seeing 584 and below is considered a poor credit score. Then when you start getting to a good credit, we got 670, 699. And of course, on 730 and on up, it's considered as excellent credit. So you want to make sure that you continue to grow up with this tree and try to avoid being at the low, because once you start getting low and then you have to start billing, you have to start eliminating and making sure that you pay things off. Next slide, please. Here we have your credit score. What can you do to improve your credit score? There are things that you can do. Well, first, what you want to do is make sure that you're paying your bills on time. Pay off debts and keep balances low. So that means the more you buy, the more that is taking points off from your score. You want to only apply for credit when it's needed. Do not close unused credit cards, because sometimes if you're paying credit cards and if you're paying them on time and they good cards, if you're paying them and they in good standing, well, they actually can be a plus for you versus a minus. And then of course you're gonna always want to dispute anything that's on your credit report that's not correct. What if you're denied for credit or insurance or do not receive the term you want? Well, actually, again, if you put it in writing, but it has to be in writing, the creditor must give you a written letter for the reason that you denied, and that's within that 60-day period. Next slide. Disputing errors on your credit report. When you want to correct some errors, the first thing you want to do, if there are some things on your credit report that's not correct, you want to make sure that you're putting it in writing. You want to make sure that you're putting it in writing, not only to the credit card company, but also to the credit bureaus as well. Make sure that you send it certified, because you want to make sure that they receive this information. You want to make sure that you also, when you send a letter and any error that you find, you want to make sure that you send the documentation, and always keep yourself a file of your personal. You want to make sure you keep a copy of all your credit report. Make sure if there's any dispute letters, because when you go, apply for something, you want to be able to refer back if you had some issues with that item. Also, if there's been a situation where identity theft occurred and then the police had to be involved, you want to make sure that you keep a copy of the police reports as well. Next slide. Now, there are ways that you can fix your credit. So what makes your credit good or what makes it bad? Now, what makes your credit good or bad is whether you paying your bills on time, what loans and credit card that you have, and make sure, and what the balances are. So if you got low balance, you know that's good, but if high balance, you want to make sure that you're paying them. Try to pay more than the minimum amount. Whether you've been sued or not, it also is it could be a negative thing on your credit report. Now, what happens is there's a negative information that's on your report. You can prevent it from, first of all, if you have negative information that's on your report, it can prevent you from getting a loan. I mean, something just simple. It also have you to pay higher interest than you normally would pay. And even sometimes it all depends on how much of negative information. It can be the reason that you've been denied of insurance or a job or whatever that you're applying for. Now, how do I know what's in my credit report? Okay, each credit bureau is required to give you a copy, but you have to request a copy. Like I said, a free copy every 12 months was actually what every year they're required to give you one. You go on the website and you get that free report. Now, if you get any additional reports, if you get it within that 12-month period, then you're probably, whatever their fee for charging for the credit reports, then you will have to pay that fee. But remember, you're always entitled to that one free. What happens if a company take a negative action against you because of something that's in your credit report? You're entitled to a credit report because you have the right to know what's in your credit report and for what reason that you were denied. And remember, you have those 60 days. And the company also must send a notice of information and provide it in the contact information. So whatever reason that you were denied, also in the letter, it'll state what credit bureau that you were denied and the reason stating why you were denied. What if I see a mistake in my credit report? You can dispute anything that's in your credit report that's not accurate, that's incomplete, that's on your report. How do I dispute mistakes in your credit report? You always gonna dispute it in writing. Never use the telephone because you need some tracking information. So you need that paper trail. So anytime that you dispute, make sure that it's always in writing, and always make sure that you're using certified mail. Next slide. Now, credit repairs, we have credit repair companies out there. I am a true believer that the best way for you to repair your credit is repairing your credit yourself. But there are companies out there, and they have people out there that they hire just to repair your credit. That would help them to investigate and see what mistakes that might be on your credit report, which these are things that you can do yourself. Is using a credit repair company a good idea? Well, like I say, it's just a personal preference. I say you can clean it up yourself, but yes, as long as it's somebody legit and you know that they're legal, and it all depends on the cost. You don't want to pay too much. So if it's legal and done, but it can be done at no cost. But if it's legal and that's something you want to do, yes, that's okay. What if you pay a credit repair company and it doesn't live up to its promises? Well, first of all, they can be sued. And also there are, because that has happened, and there are other class action suits that might be out there that you can join other people when they're not legit. So there are, they can be sued. So how do you know if you're dealing with a credit repair scheme? Okay, well, first thing, when they start asking questions, when they insist that you pay up front, that's your first red flag. When they tell you not to notify credit bureaus directly, that's another flag.
Sorry.
Okay, when they tell you to dispute information on your credit report and you know it's accurate. So if somebody telling you to do something illegal and you know that it's not, so that's another red flag. And also when they're asking you to be dishonest about your application, whether it's a credit card or a loan. And then the final thing for you to notice if it's a repair scam is that they fail to explain your legal rights. So anytime that you are dealing with people, you make sure that you know what your rights are. Next slide, please. Okay, where do you report a credit scam? Now in Mississippi, we have in Jackson, Mississippi, and I just use this here, but wherever your state attorney general office is, that's where you're going to report your scam information. And how can your credit report affect your job? excuse me, when applying for a job, employers look for application for you to complete and resume. Some employers check into your background before you being hired. And I know that a lot of, especially the federal agencies, they look into your background. And depending on your job and your credit history and your criminal records and all that, and then credit report. So they're looking to that. So you want to make sure that everything on your credit is actually yours. But next slide. Now, when we're building a better credit report, they have what they call a credit freeze. What is a credit freeze? Credit freeze is also known as a security freeze. And what it does, it restrict your asset to your credit report. And in order to place a credit freeze, you contact the National Credit Reporting Company, which is the three that I told you, Equifax, Experience, and TransUnion. Now, usually their fee, they have a fee, but the fee is going to vary. Does a credit freeze affect your credit score? No, a credit freeze, it does not affect the credit score. So how do you place a freeze on your credit report? So what do? You want to contact each one of the national credit bureaus, and you need to supply the information that you want to provide to them. It's your name, your address, your date of birth, your social security number, and any other personal information that they're going to need to know, knowing that's you. Now, after you receive the request, each credit bureau will provide you with a unique PIN number, which is a personal identification number that's only you gonna know, or sometimes they'll provide you with a password. So you wanna make sure that you keep that PIN or that password in a safe location that only you would know. So it's not good to write that on the back of something, a card or your checkbook. So put it somewhere that you won't be carrying it around. And you'll need it, you will need it if you choose to lift the freeze. So you put it on there, you use the PIN number to put the freeze on there, but you're gonna have to use the same PIN number once you will release the freeze. Next page, next slide. Okay, you have fraud alerts. What is a fraud alert? Actually, what a fraud alert, it allows the creditors to get a copy of your report with proper identity. And this is to prevent misuse of your accounts from other people using or getting to on your credit report. Now, there are three types of fraud alert. You have three types. You got initial fraud alert, which prevent from being a victim of fraud. You have an extended fraud alert. These are victim of fraud, and it actually protects you up to 7 years. And then the third one, you have an active duty military alert, and this protects people that's in the military, members of the military, while they're deployed. So this is good, at least up to a year. So all these fraud alerts, they are free, but you must provide proof identity. What's the difference between a credit freeze and a fraud alert? A credit freeze locks down your credit. A fraud alerts allow creditors to get a copy of your credit report, of course, with your permission. So remember that the freeze locks it down, but the alert is basically just what it says. It's an alert. Next slide, please. Now, there are some options with dealing with debt, and some of them you have credit counselors. You can use debt consolidation, and there's bankruptcy. I wouldn't advise anyone that bankruptcy be your last results, but it is out there. But choosing credit counseling organization, you have some of them out there in different programs. You can talk to different credit unions, even with the universities, extension programs, and just talking to people. Like I'm here today talking to you. There are other people with other extensions that can also give you the same information. So just talk to people and find what your options are and things that you can do to prevent identity theft and to help build your credit report. Next slide, please. Now here we have what we call the debt snowball effect. And what this is just what it is you just list all your debts. And it's a way to eliminate your debts. You list your debts from the smallest to the largest, regardless of the interest rate. And then sometimes people do it more than one way. Some of them do it regardless of the interest rate. Some people want to pay down the highest rate. Sometimes that elimination. So you can do it either way. But on this one here, you're going to go from the smallest to the largest, regardless of the interest rate. You make the minimum payment on all your debts except the smallest one. And you try to pay as much as possible on the smallest one. And you're going to repeat this debt until each one of them is paid in full. But that's what it's called. It's called a debit snowball effect. Next slide, please. And basically here it just give an example where you have a medical bill and the payment was $50. And then just give an example, just say if you got a side job and just say that you made $500 off that side job. Well, actually, that will give you the opportunity to pay this $500 medical bill and the $50 payment. So what you'll do the next month, the $500 that you were lucky to get, that you made maybe some extra money doing a little side job, plus your $50 payment. So you actually have that $550 to pay on the next debt. So you continue to do that until all your debts are paid out. So that's what we call the debt snowball method. That's just a sample. Next slide, please. Got bad credit, steer clear credit repair. We have all sorts of scams out there, and you're gonna see all types of scams, and you're gonna have to be aware. And some of those scams, they'll say credit problem, no problem, we can solve them. We can erase your bad credit 100% guaranteed, and it's just all kinds of type of scams out there. You just kind of like have to be mindful and know that they are scams. You have to be, you have to inquire about them. But like I tell you, and I tell you over and over, the best way to eliminate and help your own credit report is to eliminate your debt yourself. And I know it didn't take, you didn't get all the debt overnight, so it'll take time, but at least you'll know, and you know it all, it'll pay off in the end. It's time consuming, but make sure that when you're getting in doing these things, is eliminating the debt, is to make sure that you don't go back in and create more debt. So once you get out there, then you stay out of it until you pay all your debts down. Next slide, please. Now, there are some questions that when you request in service that you wanna ask, and some of the service, even when you're asking, you wanna know what do they offer. You wanna make sure that when you're dealing with people that wanna help you eliminate your debt, or if they have any type of materials or anything to show you, because you want to read up on it, you want to do a background on it. What type of fees are they charging? Because actually you want to know, actually, can you just afford to pay somebody to help eliminate your debt? Or is there any type of written agreement or a license? So there are different portions that when you request a service that you want to ask these portions up front, and to make sure that you want to make sure that they have license to operate when they are providing these services. So these are just some of the questions that you may want to ask. Next slide. Now, we all have, next slide, please. We all have responsibilities, and our responsibility is to borrow only what we can repay. read and understand and make sure that we read to understand the credit contract, pay our debt properly, notify creditors for something, and we can't meet payment. We understand that things happen, but you want to make sure that you contact those creditors and let them know what the situation. And it is our responsibility if we lose someone steal our credit card, it's our responsibility to make sure that we report those stolen cards and credit cards, or even if we've lost them. And never give your credit card number over the phone. Never do that because sometimes you get very crank calls. So anytime somebody asks, unless you know exactly who you're talking to and you can be able to identify. So if you're calling the person, fine, but mindful if someone is calling you about your credit information. But those are our responsibilities as a consumer. Next slide, please. Now these also, we all have rights, and these are some of the rights. And it's the 1968, we have rights, the Truth in Lending Act, the Fair Credit Reporting Act, we have the Equal Opportunity Act, the Fair Credit Billing Act, and the Fair Debit Collection Practice Act. And what the Truth in Lending Act is actually ensure consumers are fully informed about cost and condition of borrowing. So each one of them has the right to the consumers and letting you know what your rights are. And you see each one of them was established in different years. So I won't go through all of them, but there are rights that letting you know that you do have rights, and it's important that you know what your rights are. Next slide. Here we have a dispute letter. Basically, you can, this is just an example of a dispute letter. You can write on your own dispute letter how you want, but there's certain information that you want to make sure that you put in that dispute letter. So if you're disputing something that's on your credit report, you want to make sure that you list the item that you dispute, the documentation, and all the information as much, if it has any type of number or reference number, put all that information. Also, if you have any other documentation, attach that to the dispute letter. So this here is just a sample. And of course, don't forget to make sure that you do it certified mail. Next slide, please. These are the resources that were used here with this presentation. We have the free credit report, building a better credit report, choosing a credit counselor, the credit scores, disputing errors on credit reports, and fixing your credit. Next slide. Questions, and next slide. And the next slide is my contact information. Feel free to contact me for any questions that you may have. Thank you.
Thank you, Carolyn. Now we had one question that was in, I'll turn my video back on. And there we go. We had one question that Mr. Brooks answered in the chat box. And the question was, wait, let me back up. Now I can't see. Is it possible for a farmer to overcome a bankruptcy and still get access to credit? And Mr. Brooks' response was, bankruptcy does not automatically exclude someone from receiving a loan from FSA. Another question in the group was, what does a freeze do? Why would a farmer want to place a freeze? Carolyn, do you want to respond to that question?
Okay, a freeze is more, it's more like a protection. And that's actually a freeze is protects you from identity theft. So especially if a person have had a problem in the past, they will want to make sure that nobody else is tampering with their information. Because most time when they're doing credit and when it comes to identity theft, most of the time the people that are stealing their identity are actually people that they know. So the freeze is more like a protection. But you know, you also, you don't, you know, and then freeze, you can't do anything. The only person can uplift that freeze. You be the only person to do that. And that because of the personal identification pin that you have. But if you have someone that's close to you that have access to that information, they can do it. But if you put a freeze on there, nobody can get to that information but you. But it has happened in the past. It has happened even when people are using, when you have a junior and a senior, in that situation, people, you know, they have all types of scams. And like I said, a lot of times scams are done within own families. So it's safe to put that that freeze on there. But that's why it's to protect you.
Okay. Are there credit counseling programs specific to farmers that any of you guys are aware of?
Well, in my opinion, not that I know of. I mean, some of the USDA guys might want to allude that, but basically, when we talk about credit counseling, it's just for consumers everywhere. I mean, it's applies to the same as first protection. I mean, you know, if you're trying to do your credit and keep your credit and protect your credit, I think that's for everybody. So, but I'm not aware of any.
Okay, and then we had a question from Austin. How would you recommend that young people start building credit for the first time?
Okay, at the university, every year beginning, usually I do a freshman class. You'll be amazed that they don't even know about the credit and the credit history. Well, usually when a student, actually the credit card lenders actually start giving these students these cards like when they're 12th grade. The thing is they need to get control of their, if the parent get control of it, because usually that's how they end up getting in debt, because they start getting these credit cards and most of them don't even have a job. So the main thing is to educate them, to talk to them, to tell them the importance of having a credit card and how valuable it is. And only if they can, that they can just, I know most of them, especially if they're in college, they only need one, to make sure if they just educate them how to manage and keep that one card. I see it happen. I talk to some students where they talk to me, their parents give them a credit card, especially when they're away from home. They have that one credit card. So most of them do pretty good, but the main thing is to make sure that we continue to talk to them and educate them and start in the school system before there's the lender starts sending these credit cards out, because they start around their 12th grade. And that's how most of them get messed up with the credit, because they get in this debt and they have no way of getting out of it.
Okay. Thank you, Carolyn. And as we transition into our next presentation, there's two things that I wanted to say. One, and I forgot to say this when I kicked it off this morning, when I was talking about FSA and their programs, please remember that they did not specify that they had any grants to give farmers as individuals. And that's another misconception. I don't want to say it's germane to Georgia, but I want to be clear that FSA does not have grants to give to farmers as individuals. FSA does offer grant opportunities, but they offer opportunities to organizations that's going to provide education, technical assistance, or outreach to farmers. So I kind of want to dispel that myth, but I need you guys' help also conveying that message back on the home front, because there's still some myths out there that there are farmers out there getting grants from USDA, and that's not necessarily the case. The other thing is, with regards to Carolyn's presentation, the credit piece is very, very important, because when Mr. McCarty shared with us yesterday the amount of money that's left on the table, it's because a lot of the applicants that are applying are ineligible because their credit is not in good condition. And so a part of this education piece is that the clients that you serve, they should not find out that they have credit issues when they show up at that FSA office. They should know this beforehand. The lender should not be telling them things that honestly they already know. So it is our responsibility as educators to have that difficult conversation with our farmers about, are you paying your bills? Are you delinquent? Have you had any identity theft? These are discussions that you as educators should be able to have with your farmers, and it's kind of intimate, but it's realistic. So when they step into that FSA office to apply for a direct or any other program, they're already equipped knowing that their finances are in order. They talked about the credit scores, and I know I still have both FSA folks on the line and Mr. McCarty as a retiree. You don't have to have perfect credit, but you do need to have decent credit. So I don't want to stay too long there, but I do want you guys to understand that credit is one of the most critical pieces that keeps some of our farmers from getting the loans that they desire from FSA programs. I don't see any other questions in the chat box. So I am going to transition into our insurance piece, which is going to be done by Mr. Anthony Reed from Alcorn State. And I'm going to allow him to share his screen.
I did have one question.
Uh-oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Tess.
It's in the chat box, but I can say it.
Oh, okay. Go for it.
Just in terms of guarantors as individuals or business entities.
What is the question?
Yes, is it what is there opportunities for guarantors to be on the loan as individuals or as business entities?
Yes, so with FSA loans, guarantors are possible, but if the individual does not meet the credit standards, the guarantor, there's no need for guarantor because the individual can't meet the credit standard.
Okay, so the individual has to be able to meet the credit standard, period.
Correct.
Thanks.
Thank
And
you.
what we do at FSA, we look at the past 36 months credit history. You cannot have any outstanding federal tax liens or tax judgments. Those two things right there will exclude you from being eligible for FSA loan assistance. We don't make a decision based on the credit score, although we do pull the credit report. And again, that past 36 months credit history is very critical. Something we cannot hold anything against you from a credit perspective that was beyond your control. For example, if you were in a serious accident and you had some medical bills that were unexpected and something like that was beyond your control, those type of issues, we cannot hold that against you.
Any other questions as we try to stay on track with time? Mr. Reed? Go ahead, Mr. McCarty.
We'll stay on time.
Okay, you unmuted yourself. When you unmute, I get quiet.
I know.
Okay, so Mr. Reed, are you ready?
Rodney, can I ask you a question right quick while we're waiting?
Yes, sir.
I don't know if it came up about co-signers for an individual. I don't know if he was talking about when he said guarantors, but would the co-signers have to meet that same credit standard?
Good question. Well, I'll tell you, I personally never made a loan with a co-signer. So I'll be honest with you. Right now, I really couldn't answer that question, but I can research it. We can get back with you and make sure that we have an accurate answer.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
All right. Sorry about that as well. We're going to go ahead and get started. I guess it kind of threw me off a little bit with the computer issue, but we're going to roll right along. When we start talking about insurance, if we were face to face, pretty much, I would basically ask my clientele, because I'm not necessarily a person who try to make friends. So when I try to present information to my clientele, I try to shock them into thinking that everything I talk to them about is life or death. And we start talking about insurance and estate planning, it is life or death. So to try to get them to open their mindset to receive the information that's been presented to him and to really think about the importance of it. So we start talking about insurance. Of course, it's not necessarily an interesting topic, or some people may don't really think about it. If they do, they think about life insurance, they think about health insurance, and maybe even car insurance. But farmers don't necessarily think about anything beyond that. So we're going to talk a little bit about to try to help them see things from a little bit different perspective And then to beyond just getting the basic of life, health, and car insurance, we want to try to get them to be able to get some uh, insurance that's capable of covering all their necessities. So we talk about insurance, we talk about, the health, life, the travel insurance. But in this presentation today, we're going to focus a little bit on the different entities of insurances, because insurance basically is a mechanism for protecting yourself. You pay on a certain amount of money, which is a premium, for like every month, every quarter, even like every 6 months, even once a year, and you get that discount for paying it all up front. But it's designed to guarantee you that to compensate you if there's some basic stipulations on if there's an accident, a death, or a fire, you have that guarantee that this insurance that you've actually taken out, they're going to compensate you for it, or to help replace those assets that you may have lost. Okay, so insurance again is not a fun topic, but it is crucial that everyone has some type of insurance today. Insurance may protect you from risks that are financially devastating to your family. Now, everyone should have some form of insurance. Now, I know it's kind of confusing when we start talking about insurance because there are so many different varieties, so many different policies you actually can get, but it's something that's totally crucial. But basically, insurance, again, is to compensate you for something valuable that you actually have lost. Now, you say, well, I know insurance company is a business and they are designed to make money, but they're also, their goal is to make sure that they replace all of your valuable assets once they're lost. But it's up to you to make sure you make out some type of arrangement with those insurance company, because all of the things that you value and that you want to keep and maintain, or if they're lost, that they'll be able to help you to replace those things to the best of their ability. But it all really depends up to you, because if you're going to do a homeowner insurance, basically, it's to protect your home and its properties. If you're going to do car insurance, basically to protect your car, to replace it, and then it also protect you for liability in case someone is actually hurt in an accident. Now with farm insurance, basically protect your farm and anyone who might be harmed on your farm, because you do know that you are liable with people on your farm, whether they're invited there or they're licensed to be there, or even if they're trespassing, you can be held liable for the health and well-being on your particular property. Now, when it comes to health insurance, it's a little bit different, but it basically is to protect your asset. And when we talk about health insurance, your health is your asset, because if your health fails, you're not able to form or function on your farm enterprise. And then if that actually lost, what do you do? What do you have in place to protect yourself so the farm can keep functioning in the opportunity where you are not available to work at your full capacity? So we're going to talk a little bit about those things today. So some common myths that happens with insurance, like most things. The first myth that if I was in person, I pretty much ask you to answer these questions, were they true or false? But due to time, I'm just going to basically give the myth and give the response, basically. Now, myth one, if you buy a bright colored car, a red car, you'll pay more for your car insurance. True or false? And the answer is going to be false, because it's not true. Basically, when it comes to your insurance premium or the amount of money you pay for your insurance, it depends not just on the color of the car, it actually depends on the make of the car, the model, even its safety features that it actually has on the automobile. Also includes your credit history, the zip code, and even if there's any discount that you may have on that particular policy during that time frame. Myth two, homeowners insurance can only need to cover the market value of your home. Not true. The cost of totally rebuild your home is usually much more than the market value of your home. You need to consider today's construction costs as well as the labor costs when you start thinking about your homeowner insurance. Because again, though, there's a big difference between actual cash value and replacement value. Three, if your old stuff is destroyed, you get brand new stuff. Not true. Again, there's a difference between actual cash value and replacement value. Say if you had a television set that was worth, you may have had it like 4 or 5 years, and then you had a fire that totally destroyed your home and destroyed your television, and you want to replace it. Would you replace it at the actual cash value, or would you replace it at the replacement cost value? Because the actual cash value is what the television actually worth when the house was burned down. So then they're going to give you that amount of money, or what you want to replace it with the cost of a brand new television set. So it's a different, when you start creating your policy, there's a difference between actual cash value and replacement cost value, not just when it costs of a home or a car or a tractor or any type of asset you may have. you need to make sure that you know the difference between actual cash value and replacement cost value. All right, myth 4. Is your car totaled in an accident, you're off the hook of any car payment further? Not true. Basically, your car value can depreciate pretty quickly. So once you drive off the lot, it does depreciate right from that very moment. So it actually can end up being worth less than what you actually owe on the car. So fortunately, there's something called a like a gap insurance you actually can get. Like it's like to help support your insurance. So anything beyond what the insurance doesn't pay, your gap insurance can help cover the difference between what you actually owe and what the insurance company pays. Myth 5. You aren't legally responsible for a trespass on your property. Now, again, I mentioned before about the ideal about somebody who has a right to be on your property because they have a legal obligation. Somebody who's there, if they may have been invited over there, or somebody just visiting, or trespassing, or have a license to be there. All three components, you could be responsible for the liability of that particular person. So you need to have an insurance policy that will cover those incidents that may happen on your particular farm. And then to not just that, even your farm, you may have somebody who could be actually hurt while they're actually working on your farm, or somebody or your kids, or even yourself. What do you have in place if you are hurt on your property while you actually carry out your enterprise duties? So we need to be mindful of those type of things. Even not just your farming enterprise, but even around your home. Say if you had a swimming pool and somebody was over there swimming, a young child, and they actually drowned in the swimming pool, are you liable for that child's death? Sure you are. But what the court's going to look at is called all reasonable efforts. All reasonable effort is, have you done everything in your power to secure your property? Now, if you're looking at a swimming pool, you may have said, well, we got a good fence up, we got a good gate, we got signs up, we've notified the neighbors. You've done everything that you could possibly do to protect yourself from, or protect your neighbors from actually small child coming over and drowning in the swimming pool. There was an incident in Mississippi to where a young man was trespassing on another, his neighbor's farmer's property. And he actually went swimming in his stock pond. And the young man actually drowned. And the family actually sued the farmer who owned the property for him not doing everything in his power to actually protect their particular child. And they actually won the case. I don't know all was actually stated in the case, but I know they actually won. They were saying that the farmer did not do all reasonable efforts in terms of protecting their child from drowning on their particular property. So we need to be mindful of that as well. Myth 6. If someone else is driving your car and gets into an accident, their insurance will cover any damages or injuries. Basically, your insurance held by the owner of the vehicle is typically considered the primary insurance in the event of an accident. So regardless of who is actually driving the car, it is the car owner and their insurance policy become the primary coverage to help pay off those, somebody have a medical bill or even damages. So be mindful of who you drive your vehicle, that you could be held responsible for covering your own car debts, whether it's injuries or just in terms of medical bills. Myth 7. Comprehensive coverage covered by theft of your vehicle and all items contained within it. Basically, the myth as well. Basically, your comprehensive coverage basically only covers items physically attached to your vehicle. That includes like your car stereo, GPS, those things that are factory installed. And when you start talking about other things that are in the car, you may want to look at extending your homeowner or your apartment rental coverage to actually cover those types of things. Then it also going to depend upon where that particular vehicle is when it's actually broken into. But factory items is going to be pretty much what your comprehensive coverage is going to be looking mostly at. Those things that are a part of what the dealership actually built into the automobile. Myth 8. My beneficiary will have to pay income taxes on the proceeds from my life insurance policy. Myth. Your life insurance benefits are generally income tax free and do not have to be reported on your income tax, according to the Internal Revenue Service. But it means that if you pass away and your beneficiary will not be taxed on the benefits paid out from your insurance policy. But however, though, be mindful though, when you start talking about being beneficiary and receiving life insurance payment, there's a difference in terms of the type of insurance that was actually purchased. Was it a term life insurance or was it a whole life insurance policy that the actual person actually purchased? Because one actually pays out during a time frame, which is a term. One is the other one's the whole life, which covers the whole life of a person. And only one creates interest when money is actually being invested. So that money will be taxed if it is come from a life insurance policy. So be mindful that we start talking about term life and whole life, what's the benefit between the two, and also the cons that actually of getting either one of those as well. Okay. Now, I need enough life insurance to cover several times my income. Most of the time, most people usually get about 3 times their income when it comes to established insurance policy. But is that really enough? Because someone may end up having to, of course, they lost you and may have lost that particular income coming to the household. Then too, the money that comes from insurance policy, would it be enough to cover all of your home owner's responsibilities? You know, the house note, the car note, any type of thing that goes on in the household. You have kids under the age of 18 and so forth. And then, would they be physically or mentally able to work anytime in the near future? Because again, they may have to live off the insurance policy for a number of years. So be mindful though, try to look at a larger extent in terms of your insurance policy, not just the 2 or 3, but substantially much more, because a person may have to live off their insurance policy for several months to get themselves back into a financial position to cover all of their debts and responsibilities, but also to regroup mentally with the loss of a loved one. So we talk about insurance premium. Basically, we talk about insurance premium. We're looking at the price will be paid to our insurance companies. So what it is that you establish a policy and you pay them for this policy, and you pay it again monthly or quarterly or 6 months or even once a year. Or again, that's what you call your premium. And the only thing is that it's based on a number of factors. It's based on the type of coverage you actually get. It's based on the age of the insurer. And also the area in which you actually live, any claim that you may have filed in the past. Then even some moral hazards and adverse selection are some key things. And some things too, actually the age component. A lot of times you say, well, the insurance is kind of high in the city, but if you look at a young person who's under age 18, who now have a license, and you put them on your insurance policy and they drive, and that your insurance premium is going to go up a little bit, because in the city, a kid is more prone to have an accident in the city than they do in the rural sector. So there's going to be a difference in terms of that insurance premium. So it may be a little higher than in the rural sector. But we start talking about moral situations. You say, well, moral, well, actually your morals, because a moral hazard is when you have a person, just say for instance, you have a person who actually lived in an area where they didn't have any homeowners or flood insurance. So then all of a sudden they start having storms and floods, and somebody started breaking into the neighborhood. They decide to go out and get these policies. Then they get these policies. Then after a while, they get relaxed in terms of all the things they could be doing to help, help to keep the home safe, keep protected from floods by cleaning out the gutters and things of that nature. But when they got the initial policy, that was a part of the premium. They said they did the gutters on a regular basis. They cleaned out the chimneys, and they did all these things. But after a while, they got kind of comfortable. They stopped doing all the added work, which means they changed their morals. So then it becomes a moral hazard to the insurance company. Because again, insurance companies are going to look at what can we do to alleviate us from paying out a claim. So we want to try and get some sturdy, dependable, trustworthy, insurers in reference to somebody who's going to be who's going to file a claim against the insurance company. Because the insurance company, again, they're in business to make money, and how they make money is not paying out on claims. All right, so who determines these coverage? The first step thing is to look at how much can you comfortably pay for insurance. You need to be mindful though, because again, once you start paying, any lapse in your insurance policy that you're not paying and something happens, that would be an easy out for the insurance company not to cover those claims. So when you start looking at, I want to establish an insurance policy, try to get you something that you should actually cover on a regular basis in terms of what is paid monthly, quarterly, or so forth. Now, while it's essential to protect all of your belongings, full coverage can be somewhat expensive. So again, though, make sure you get something that you can actually pay and be consistent in paying your monthly or quarterly insurance policy again, because again, it's going to create an issue for you if your insurance lapses. Now, once your property is brand new, get maximum coverage, because again, though, you want to make sure if you have a new home and your home burned, You want to replace the full market value of that particular home. Don't have an insurance policy only pay a certain percentage that doesn't cover the house and everything inside of it. Because again, you kind of defeating the purpose of having insurance. Make sure again about the having the actual versus the actual versus the word phased right now. Your actual versus having the true value of the particular home. Because again, though, you don't want to just get a policy and it doesn't meet your full extent of covering your insurance issues. So do I need a farm and ranch insurance? I say you definitely do. And most time we start looking at farm and ranch insurance, we like, well, do I really need all these things that I'm actually trying to cover? What it is, when you really sit down and talk to your insurance insurer, you want to make sure that you cover everything, that how you operate. The different type of enterprise requires certain types of insurance. In order to figure out what your insurance needs are, you got to sit down and talk about what I'm going to try to do for the year. First thing, you need to look at your actual structure on your farm. Now, you may say, well, I have a farm enterprise, but I have a barn on my farm. So then you need to look at how do I cover my barn if my barn should actually burn down or if a storm destroys my barn. You need to have something in place to cover those structures on that particular property. Then what about if you have like income earning livestock? Well, you have just basically your birds in the yard compared to one that actually bring in income, like a herd of heifers in your farm. So one is just like one that's like having horses or chicken, just a fun thing to have around the house. But when it comes to something that actually earns an income, you want to make sure you have an insurance policy that covers those things too as well. It's going to have a simple different policy than actually for your structures on your farm versus your livestock on the farm. Then two, if you have employees, you need to make sure that you have an insurance policy that cover all employees on the farm, including your family members and yourself, because if something happens to you, again, that's going to alleviate that particular income being made available to those to your family. So what do you have in place? You can actually have a disability insured. It can be for a set time frame, or because again, there's a short term, there's long term. One could go up to a couple years. One can actually go up to a substantial number of years, depending on the type of insurance you actually want to cover. But it's so important if you really look into how to protect the structures, how do you protect your livestock, and how you're going to protect all employees on your particular property. Now, in terms of farm machinery and equipment, there's a difference between just having a truck that you drive around the farm compared to your equipment that you use on a regular basis. Now, you may cover like your tractor, your combine, planter, all field equipment, your hay rakes, cotton pickers, and so forth. That requires the right amount of insurance, because again, those items are not just a $20,000, $30,000 item. Those go to $200,000 and higher. And you want to be able to replace those items, because again, though something should happen to it in the middle of a planting or harvesting season, is going to have a direct impact on your farm enterprise. So you'll make sure that you have the appropriate insurance to either replace it, or one that will allow you to rent another piece of equipment to get you through the season, or how can you get it repaired in a short time frame so it doesn't have a substantial impact to hinder your farm enterprise from succeeding for that particular year. Now we talk about farm livestock insurance. Now, sometimes we actually have livestock and we live in the rural sector, but sometimes we don't do a good job of keeping those guys locked in. You guys may be familiar with a fence in, fence out rule, which is basically pretty much in every state. What it is, it says that you have set up a fence and you have placed your post on a certain side of the fence. And on which side of the fence actually picks in terms of whether you are putting you're keeping your cows in, or you're keeping your livestock or keeping other things out from getting onto your farm. So if you don't do a good job of putting your post on the right side, you set yourself up for possibly being sued if actually one of your livestock gets out on the road, was a cow or a goat or whatever it may be, and cause injury to a passive vehicle. It will be a lot easier for them to sway that you didn't do a good job of protecting your farm enterprise. So, but then also too, when it comes to livestock, sometimes, you guys remember Hurricane Katrina, we actually have livestock that actually passed from the storm. So what you have in place is related to your insurance to cover those livestock that are basically being damaged by lightning, because sometimes they go up under the trees and get electrocuted, or they actually die from a number of different things on your farm. So what do we do in terms of insurance policy to cover those items? We need to be mindful though, when we establish a policy, do we have enough insurance that will actually cover our livestock? And then two, what are the reasons they are actually covered? Is a cow being electrocuted under the tree, is that covered by my policy? If not, then maybe you may need to look at restructuring your policy, because again, we do a lot of animals go up under trees during storms. So make sure your policy is appropriately structured to cover all of your needs. Now, what about farm products? Now we know there's seed, feed, grains, and other similar items considered farm products are usually covered on your basic farm insurance. But remember, these things are only covered if they are actually stored. So basically your feed and grain or other crops growing on the property, seed that has been planted are not necessarily covered. You would actually typically require a commercial insurance policy to cover those things that are not stored on your particular property. So be mindful as well. Again, the items that are stored pretty much are covered under your regular insurance farm policies, but those things that are not stored, you require a different type of insurance policy to cover those as well. I know I'm going kind of swiftly because I'm trying to get through within our timeline here. Farm liability coverage. Now, again, we talk about having employees on our farm a lot about, again, in terms of make sure they are totally appropriately covered. But do we actually have enough insurance to cover our farm? If I'm the farm owner and I'm laid up for like 6 months or 8 months or even longer, what kind of liability insurance would I have for me as a farmer? Because say basically the only person working the farm, so who's going to come in? Does the wife or the kids able to carry on the farm enterprise in my absence? Or is it totally reliant on my labor and sweat to be able to continue to function? Because sometimes you can actually get an insurance policy that will cover you liability-wise, but it only covers you liability-wise if you are able to not necessarily farm, but if you're able to continue working to make money, then that's a different type of policy you actually need. But then there's also a policy that you actually can get that will allow you to be able to pay you even if you are able to work at a grocery store to make additional money, but you're not able to run the farm. So be mindful of that too as well. So when you establish your policy, if you farm as your only enterprise, that you only work, you have no outside income coming in, then you need to make sure your policy is set up to where if you're not farming, it's going to pay you that liability coverage when you're not farming. And if you cannot go out and farm, but even you're able to go farm someplace that's not farm or go work someplace else, you are still paid the full liability coverage to cover your farm obligations. Now, why cover farm vehicle? Again, we talk about having trucks that we actually use to go on the farm. We talk about mules and four-wheelers and so on. But are those things really covered, or are we covered while we actually ride those things on our farm? We need to make sure our coverage covers liabilities. It covers collisions. It covers us to have roadside assistance if we decide to leave the farm and to drive into town or to haul cows to the sale barn. We need to make sure our policy covers us in that fact as well. Then too, even replacement costs for a newer vehicle. Because again though, if you have a farm truck that you use to haul cattle, if that truck breaks down or has an accident in it, how are you going to get those items to the sale barn or to be able to haul anything that you actually need with that particular entity? So you make sure your policy is appropriately structured. We talk about liability. Basically, this covers protection from lawsuits or claim against you for bodily injuries or property damage caused by a personal vehicle or which you are legally liable for. Then what about collision? It pays for damages for your personal vehicle, including your farm truck, ATVs, trailer, and farm and tractors and trailers as well. It also, there's some called a upset collision. Upset means that if a vehicle has an accident and it turns over, that's considered an upset, something that basically it turns over or tips over. Uninsured or underdrive motor vehicles, that's basically to protect you in case you end up running into another vehicle that's not properly insured. That will be able to cover your insurance vehicle, because some people do ride around with no appropriate insurance. So in case they do, you will be covered if you have that type of accidents. Then too, roadside assistance is pretty good policy to actually have in your in your field, because again, what if happens if you out on the road in the middle of nowhere with no reception and so forth, and you need to be able to get roadside assistance, get that tractor or truck carried into the local repair shop, instead of having you stranded inside the road for hours. This can actually be done as a part of your policy. Actually, it's good for just a personal policy as well. Instead of having you inside the road, if you can't repair your vehicle, get somebody to have it carried in for you also. Now, what is covered in your farm insurance? Now, one of the major things that's not covered on a regular basis is farm fencing. Most farmers have a substantial amount of fencing around their farm. But you said, well, since there's so much fencing, how do I actually insure it? Most farmers don't, because it's so much. And then most of the time, your fence only majorly torn down if there's a major storm or hurricane that comes through. Now, the basic thing that may a tree fall on it, or animal tear it down, or that kind of thing, you can repair it yourself. But when it comes to major repairs for your fencing, then you can have a policy that covers that. But the basic things that happen to your fence, you want to take care of that yourself. But if you have like a major, large, expensive gates, or you know, things that if you have like electric fencing, things like that, you want to be able to cover those. It could cost, because a basic electric fence could actually go up to like $15,000, even higher. So you did want to cover those things. But just the basic fence repairs, I wouldn't really worry about trying to cover those, because again, though, how often do we actually have major storms that tear down majority of the fencing? So you can save your money there, and you have, of course, with the money you have set aside for emergency purposes or incidents, you can use that to cover fence repairs. Because again, using fence on a regular basis is not that expensive. It only becomes expensive if you have a major expensive gate, electric gate, that actually can be torn up by a storm. So, but there are some advantages or to rewards to combining insurance policies. But again, it's all about what insurance company you actually talk to, what they have going on, and to the advantages of whether it be your house, your automobile, personal automobile, your farm truck, your structures on your farm, your grain bins, your livestock. All those could be a bigger advantage to combining all those with one insurance company, instead of having a couple of things with one insurance company here, a couple of things with another insurance company there. So it's called basically bundling. And there's a lot of advantages to bundling with one insurance company. Because again, you're trying to look at all of the benefits of trying to save as much money as possible with the best coverage at the same time. So basically, when it comes to homeowners insurance, they are basically 4 major areas that you want to cover. The dwelling coverage, which rebuild the structure of your home. Personal property coverage, replace personal property, which destroys the home. Liability coverage, again, if somebody get injured on your property, and it may sue you, or it may be some additional living expenses, which is ALE coverage. What it does, it cover all those additional expenses that may not be covered by your basic homeowners insurance. Because again, though, some policy will cover up to a certain amount, depending on what type of coverage you establish in your policy. You want to make sure that you cover everything, the house, and the additional expenses that may come from replacing that particular structure. Now, there are some insurance types, and the H1 is a minor insurance policy. What it does, it narrowly covers your homeowner insurance with very limited coverage, but it does cover the basic 11 named hazards, and those hazards will be named in your policies. Now, the H2, which is going to be a more of a common type of policy, it protects against all of the H1s. It covers all of the major perils that we cover in HO1, but it also covers some additional things like overflow of plumbing, your HVAC, household appliances, and things of that nature would be a good feature to have when it comes to your homeowner's insurance. Then there's the HO3, which covers all your major perils, specifically includes such as your earthquakes, floods, landslides, mudslides, nuclear accidents, and sinkholes, and any other thing that happens on your farm. So again, your biggest thing is that you want to make sure you cover all the things that could possibly happen. So when you start looking at the H1, H2, H3, and so on, there's H4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. Look at them closely and see which one best represent what you're trying to cover. Because again, H4 is for rent insurance. H5 cover your personal property from all your hazards pretty much as well. H6 is for condos if you're going to have a tenant or leasing out property. H7 protects like your mobile homes. And H8 is designed for your older homes. So again, you want to make sure that your premiums and what you get paid out to you as to replace your property or your assets, that your insurance company is going to be able to replace it by its current value and not on what is a value at the time that the action was actually lost. Now, life insurance. Again, we talked a little bit about life insurance, that it's a little bit different. So, but the thing is that though, listening to something this morning. This person was talking this morning. She said that she had working with 23 different doctors, and she had been doing it for over 8 years. 23 doctors, 8 years came to a large amount of money. So what basic insurance would you actually have that's going to cover those types of things? You're not sure. So we start talking about life insurance. If you lose your life, then what do you have in place to actually cover all your medical expenses so there's not going back onto your family? And then two, how soon would your loved one be able to have access to the benefits of your life insurance policy? That's why we talked a little bit earlier about the difference between the whole life and the term life. I think there is a difference between the two and how we want to structure our life insurance policy. Because I don't like combining investment with insurance as related to health and life. Because again, your term life, you establish a policy pretty much between maybe 10, 20, 30 years. And if you pass away between that time frame, you will basically be paid your insured premium, not premium, your benefits of your insurance policy. Then to the whole life, again, it grows a value over a time frame. And then two, I see Joy there. So I mean, my time is running out. How much time I have, Joy?
1 minute.
Whoa, okay. Let me skip here. Basically, the last thing I want to go over here is the disability insurance. We talked a little bit about that earlier. The difference between short-term disability insurance and your long-term disability insurance. The difference is the time frame that actually it's paid out. Because your basic short-term disability is only going to cover you for a short time period, and it may not be long enough. Because again, you may be laid up from work as a farmer. Because when we get hurt on the farm, we get hurt seriously. We may lose an arm or a leg, and we may even have a broken leg or arm. We could be out for 6 months easily. Do we have a policy that's going to cover that? Then too, what if it goes longer? Well, we may be out a couple of years. So the difference between short-term and long-term, make sure that you actually have both. There's a short-term recovery you can actually be compensated for to cover your homeowner's expenses and so forth. Long-term is to be able to cover those expenses way beyond the basic of your injuries. Oh, again, we talked about that earlier. Just make sure you cover what if you can get another job, that you will be able to do so and not be forced to, especially if you don't have an outside income as a farmer. Your only business is to be the farmer. You want to be able to be compensated and not have to go out and get a job to be able to cover your household expenses and living expenses, because your only job is farming. And basically, as information contained in this presentation provided information purposes, I do recommend sitting down with an insurance person to clarify specifically what your needs are, and then to have a policy that actually covers your health and well-being, whether it's life or health. Then to make sure you have the appropriate homeowner's insurance that actually replace the home to the fullest extent, because you're going to have to build a new one at the new rate of labor and a new rate of supplies. And then to make sure, do you understand those myths that you will have to cover anyone that's actually on your farm, whether they are invited there, they're trusting pests there, or even have a right to be there because they're checking water meters and so forth. You still can be held liable to cover their health and well-being. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Reed, we're a little bit over. Is your farmer on the line, Mr. Trainer?
Yes, ma'am, I'm here.
Oh, ask and he shall appear.
Hey, seek and you shall find. I thank God being here.
Amen. What I am going to do, let me look at my time. It is 11:52 in some people's world, and it's 12:52. what we're going to do, Mr. Trainer, is I'm going to go ahead and allow you to speak. I want to say thank you for being here with us. Happy Veterans Day. We got about a 10 to 15-minute window, and then we're going to go to break. So I'm going to go ahead and let you speak, and then we're going to go on ahead to break since you're already here with us.
Thank you, ma'am. I certainly appreciate the opportunity to come on to this particular program and also to talk a little bit about it. And I'm glad that you put me right before break. So that means I can cut it very short, get out the way, and I think everybody will appreciate that. But I first of all, I want to thank you all for the program that you're doing and for the hard work that you all are doing. I hope the Veterans Day and everything is going well with you all. And even in times that we're living in right now, there's still a lot of exciting things to do. So I want to commend each and every one of you all that's on the line for the work that you do, trying to make things as best you can. Now, Dr. Reed did give me some specific instructions to kind of talk about what I need to talk about, and I'll try to do that very quickly so you all can continue your program. And I did get a chance to listen to the bulk of his presentation, and I really enjoyed that information. My name is Orlando Trainer, and I am a resident of Starkville, Mississippi, in Oktibbeha County, Mississippi. I'm 46 years of age. I've been in Oktibbeha County all of my life, except for a few years where I went to the University of Mississippi. So I am an Ole Miss man. But one thing that's kind of interesting is that when I left Starkville, my goal was to come back. And had I known that I was going to really, well, I did know at the time that I was very interested in agriculture, but I went to a school that was not an agricultural school because I went there to play football. But lo and behold, ag has been in my heart for a long, long time. And so when I finished school, I came back here. I started a small farming enterprise dealing with hay and whatnot, and got involved in politics over about 21 years ago now, and got elected as a county supervisor here in Oktibbeha County. So I've been extremely blessed to be able to serve the citizens of Oktibbeha County, and also trying to enhance, increase, and improve myself as it relates to the agricultural opportunities and things that are here in my area. Of course, you all know that we're in the South, and we have one thing that we have plenty of that's unused is land and air and opportunity. So what we decided to do, we decided many years ago that we wanted to get into the agricultural enterprise. And probably about 20 years ago, just by, well, I guess it was divine guidance, because I was introduced to Alcorn by a friend of mine. His wife at the time, she was working with Alcorn. And lo and behold, it never dawned on me that I would be sitting in the position that I am right now. Now, I do want to offer a disclaimer. With all the information and all the training and all the exposure I had, I should be in the $1 million class of farmers, but I'm not. And it's not because of the information or the lack thereof. It's simply because that when you start looking at the whole gamut of life and you really understand what life is all about, it's not so much about trying to focus more so on material wealth, but focus on something that you enjoy and something that you love, and then focus on leaving a legacy. So I am eternally grateful and thankful for the relationship that I have had with Alcorn State University, and I'm not biased. You know, I have gotten assistance from Alcorn, various programs and various things. We work with Mississippi State University, involved with a lot of different other things as it relates to anybody that wants to share information with us that's ag related. And one of the things that kind of put this thing on a different level is that we have, a few years ago, I'll say maybe it's over 10 now, but really active about 7. We got together with some other community persons and formed a group that we call the Unlimited Community Agriculture Cooperative. And basically, the goal of that cooperative is to teach and train and expose farmers and landowners and other interested individuals, whether it may be business persons or whatnot, to give them some exposure and also to emphasize the opportunities that are out there in agriculture. And as you can see, agriculture touches a lot of things. You all just got through talking about insurance and how important insurance is to persons that are involved in agriculture. And so to be active and engaged now, you have to be well-versed. You have to have the time and the energy to absorb a lot of things, and also to study and to follow up things, because it's amazing how different things have an impact or play a role in things that you're really concerned about and really important to you. So I have enjoyed a lot of training through Alcorn, financial assistance. I went to small farmers classes. I've gotten to know Mr. Reed and Ms. Banks and several others extremely well, because we have attended a lot of things with them. And not only have we attended, but we've been trying to expand the tent and trying to share this information with other people and other small farmers. And you'd be surprised. Sometimes I feel like a secretary or an office person, because people call me for information, not only on the governmental level from the local government, but they also call me as far as with agricultural opportunities and how to do this. I even had a call this morning, someone needing some assistance that wasn't ag related or government related. So that's one of the things that we do that we really enjoy, just trying to be a resource and trying to expose and trying to encourage individuals to take advantage of some of these opportunities. I'm a firm believer that there's more opportunity now than there has ever existed in the livelihood or lifespan of man. However, on the flip side of that, there are more people who could either care less, or more people that are not taking advantage of these opportunities, or just simply don't know. And so therefore, when we look out, we see there's a lot of work to do, and we're just committed on doing our part, trying to do what we can to expose and to also learn and to spread what we learn. And throughout this life, we want to leave it and lay it on the line. We don't want to take nothing with us, because in essence, we know we can't take nothing with us. We didn't bring anything here. So that's my story in a nutshell. Whatever questions or whatever I can do to make this particular presentation more interesting or more enhancing, I'm more than willing to do that. But I thank you for the opportunity to come on and to share with you a little bit about my story.
Thank you, Mr. Trainer. I appreciate that. I'm just going to ask one quick question. Have you had any dealings with FSA?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Well, I guess the latest dealings I had with FSA was I submitted my county committee person candidate in the mail Monday. I haven't borrowed any money through FSA, and the reason why I haven't is because I guess from a personal standpoint, I'm trying to make sure and get some other things out of the way. But I have gotten information. I went through some of the training that Mr. McCarthy, I see him on the line, that he's done, and also had a chance to go to some of the vendors borrowers training. And I'm almost to the point to where I'm going to go down to the FSA office, but I want to make sure that I don't load the wagon and add any more to it until I can unload some of the stuff I have. But I see the opportunities there. My experiences with NRCS, FSA, USDA have all been positive, and I know that I may not be the best example, but and just a disclaimer, my perspective on things may be a little different, but at the same time, all of my experiences have been positive. And if there has been a situation where it was maybe not as positive as you wanted to be, I could always call someone, and that's one thing that's imperative about this. You need to have contacts and have people that you can call and follow up, and then also be prepared when you do make the call, so you can ask for the right thing or the right information or the right paperwork or whatever, so you can accomplish whatever your goal is you want to accomplish.
Okay, Mr.
All right. Can I say something?
Sure.
Orlando, can you talk about your experience with the loan program, how you really got involved with Alcorn? It was true, the loan program. Can you?
Right. At the time, and good to hear Ms. Crosby. At the time, I guess that was back in 2000, 2001. It was brought to my attention that Alcorn has a small farmers loan program. And at that time, it was, I think you could borrow $25,000 with no interest. And so what we did, we got the information. And one of the things that discourages us sometimes is that we feel like that, things have some preliminary things that we have to do that we're not willing to do per se, because fear the unknown or because we may just be lazy. But with Alcorn and with the programs I've been involved in, if you get the information and dot the I's, cross the T, follow the process, submit the stuff back when you need to be, and be patient, everything usually works out. So I did apply for a loan. I got it approved at $25,000. I paid that loan back, and then I was able to borrow some additional money back. At that time, I think that the limit was lowered to $15,000. So currently at the time, right now, we do have a loan that's outstanding, with Alcorn. And that small farmer's loan was a blessing. I was able to purchase a piece of equipment, purchase two pieces of equipment, a tractor and another implement. And that particular equipment was very, very much important in my haying operation. And we're still using some of that equipment today.
Mr. Trainer, this is Joy again. We have a question from Ann Miller, and her question to you is, what are the critical training you might recommend for new and beginning farmers?
First of all, find an institution, whether it's Fort Valley State, Alcorn, or Mississippi State, that has programs designed for small farmers. Right now, I'm currently involved in the farm management educational program that's through Alcorn. Now it's designed for, when I say more advanced, I mean, when I say more advanced for individuals who've gone through the first segment. So there are programs that are out there that can help take you step by step, and you don't even have to know what a farm is or what farming means. I mean, it'll take you from A all the way to Z if you have the wherewithal and have the interest in doing that. So there are several programs and there are several groups out there that are like our group that's going the extra mile. In other words, they're willing to come out, sit down at the dinner table with you, come by the house, help you get the information and help walk you through some of this stuff, and then give you encouragement. Because sometimes when you go down to these offices, I left the USDA office today to get an application, which was a homeowner's application for an individual, 46 pages. and you give that to a person who's not familiar with that, they would become discouraged. They say it's too much paperwork. But once you sift through and do the reading and get to the second page, you know, there are certain things in there that once you do, it won't take you long, and you'll get your response back to determine whether you're eligible and whether you have to go to the next step. So that's what we're trying to do as a group. We're trying to provide that technical assistance and trying to help individuals out there. So if there are some groups like that in the communities where you all live, get engaged and get involved with them. Learn from the best practices, and also just, you know, ask for guidance. And you'd be surprised when people see you trying to pursue something, regardless of whatever your political affiliation is, regardless of whether your ethnicity or your gender. You'd be surprised the number of people that's just willing out there to assist you and to give you their input based upon their experiences. And you'd be much more successful going that route than you would be just not being aggressive and not pursuing certain things.
Okay, Mr. Trainer, we got one more question, and it's from Candy Williams. Well, we got, okay.
Yeah, I see both of them. Yes, I have. I applied for CFAP 1 and I applied for CFAP 2. I got funded on both of those things. And then I also tried to apply for EIDL monies, and I didn't get funded on that because I think I filled it out wrong. But I did request for reconsideration. I need to follow that up to see whether whether I'll get some assistance out of that. But we're very thankful for that. And then also we're in the state of Mississippi, and they have another program to where there was some monies that were allocated to the state. It was somewhat designed for some of the chicken farmers and some of the potato farmers, and then some of the ones who didn't get funded through CFAP 1 and 2. So I don't think I'll be eligible for that. I see the next question says, did you say you want USDA for home insurance? No, I went by USDA today to get an application for a resident or a constituent of mine that wanted to look at the possibility of building a home. And so they asked me about the USDA home program. And so I went down there to get I think it's the 502 loan application for them. And of course, I didn't have to go down there. They emailed it to me, but they emailed it to me on my phone, and I couldn't get it printed off because it was such a large file. And I just ended up getting it sent to one of the local copy companies and went by and just paid $4 or $5 to get them printed off. Let me see, the IDL is through SBA. Yeah, yes, you're correct. You're correct about that. It's through SBA, but due to some of the circumstances surrounding this pandemic, farmers were eligible for that particular opportunity also. Farmers and people in agriculture line of business.
And I'm just wanting to expand, since you guys are using
farming. No, I was.
CFAP is supposedly the Coronavirus Food Assistance Program. Is that
yes, ma'am?
So what? Go ahead.
Coronavirus Food Assistance Program 1 and 2. Okay. You know, by way of the current administration seeing the need and seeing the impact of the coronavirus, really in all walks of life. There were some farmers out there that basically had to take a loss because their markets and their livelihoods were impacted because of COVID. And so the administration came up with this program, and what it did, it basically, it was very flexible, but at the same time, you know, anything that comes through with the government, it may be flexible, but you need not take it for granted that you'll be held accountable somewhere down the line, because whatever monies they give you, you will be taxed on that. You'll get a 1099, I guess, at the end of the year. So we were able to apply for some funding based upon a cash payment per head on the amount of livestock that we had, and then also the amount of livestock that we sold. Basically, that particular payment would supplement the loss that you might have incurred had you had to sell your livestock, and the price would not have been what it would have been under normal conditions. And so it wasn't a substantial amount because I don't have a large herd, but for those individuals who had larger herds, of course, their amount was much more. But I'm thankful for the amount that I got because, hey, it was able to buy some feed and some other things that's needed here on the farm, and you never want to look a gift horse in the mouth, so to speak, was my farm inherited. I was very fortunate. Blessed, and everything else you want to say, to purchase a piece of property. And it's ironic who I purchased it from, because I purchased it from Mississippi State University. Mississippi State University. There was an opportunity where I was introduced or was able to come onto a piece of property to get some hay. One year, I think Mississippi State had a lot of hay that they didn't need to cut. And so they gave the hay to an individual, and the individual contacted me and said, "Hey man, we got some hay. I want you to come up here and cut this hay." And we split the hay. So when I came onto this place, it was about a 71-acre tract. Wasn't extremely far from where I lived. And I kind of fell in love with it. Lo and behold, did I know that that particular place was going to soon come up for bid, because Mississippi State decided that they wanted to sell this place and buy some more property. It was a little bit closer to some of the other property that they had. And, I don't care what you say. I know it was divine intervention, because there's some things that happened in a way that I know that it had to be divine intervention, because that's the way things work out. That's what I believe. But nonetheless, I was able to buy this piece of property, bought it below market value. An excellent piece of property. It was mostly open land. I was able to buy it. At the time, I didn't live here. I convinced my wife to come over here because we're off the road. I'm probably about 7/10 of a mile off of the road. And I bought this piece of property, and I would probably say that this property, and I may be a little bit conservative, but I would probably say the property has tripled in value since I had it. That's just how great of a deal that I had. And we came in, we built the homestead here. We raised 3 children here, have a few cattle, do a little hay, and got aspirations of maybe doing a few little crops with some high tones of hoop house. But hopefully what that does to me, that challenges me to make sure that I have a estate planning plan in place so that my property can transition and hopefully can stay in my family for many years to come. But I was fortunate enough to be able to pay it. There are some other things that come along when you have to deal with air properties and things of that nature. Of course, Mississippi in the South is loaded with air property. But I feel pretty good at night. Now, I'm still making a mortgage, but I can see the end in sight.
Thank you, Mr. Trainer, for being with us. That was the last question that was out there, and I appreciate everyone hanging in there. We've been going 2 hours strong. So you guys have all earned a wonderful 15-minute break. Mr. Trainer, you're welcome to stay with us. We'll be going into the will and estate planning. We're not telling you have to go goodbye, but I do appreciate you sharing your own personal story with the audience. And I appreciate you.
Well, I certainly appreciate that, and looking forward to, I will be going on and off. I see somebody was trying to get me, so I'll check with them and I'll check back in. But I appreciate the opportunity, and looking forward to maybe getting engaged and getting involved with you all again sometime in the future.
Thank you, Mr. Trainer.
Thank you. You all have a great day.
You too. And class, we are going to break for 15 minutes, so let's get up and stretch. See you in 15. And hopefully everyone had a good 15-minute break. Monitoring the chat box. HP asked the question, Anthony Reed, but I guess anyone can answer. If a veteran has 100% disability, can he or she get life insurance? Any of my trainers know the answer to that? Okay, McCarty, I was reading your lips. I think you said, I don't know.
Yeah, that's something we have to look into. I could definitely look into it and get back with them even today. Okay.
So with that being said, I appreciate Mr. Trainer popping in and spending a few minutes with us. To me, it brings value to hear from the people that we serve. And he looked like he was an awesome representation of the Alcorn family, even though he's in Starkville. So with that being said, we are now moving into the wills and estate planning presentation, which is a 2-part session. We're going to do a 45-minute stint, and then we're going to take a break. And then Mr. Reed, while I have you, I know Deborah is supposed, or I hope I said her name right, Ms. Coleman is supposed to come on at 1:45.
That's correct.
Do we want to go ahead after we come back from break, allow her to go, and then allow you to come back and do the second half of wills and estate planning? Do you think that'll work?
Well, I just need to make sure she's going to be still available.
Okay, I just know that you're going to be presenting, so I didn't want to mess up your flow.
Well, that's
So we're
fine
gonna,
if we break, but I just need to, I know she's going to be, well, she's scheduled to be 1:45. We can,
right.
we can reach out to her, see if she's able to come on sooner, but I know right now she's scheduled to be at 1:45. I talked to her this morning.
Okay. So we'll revisit this when we go to break, which will be about 1:50, and
Okay,
just see how things are. So at
okay,
this time, Mr. Reed, I'm going to turn it back over to you and allow you to start your presentation on
okay,
bills and estate planning. Thank you.
all right. Okay, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm glad you guys are still with us this afternoon. Um, this topic that I'm going to cover this afternoon, I know most people, when they hear, when they just hear the two titles together, will and estate planning, and they say, well, will is a part of estate planning, which is necessarily true. But we start talking about dealing with our clientele, the estate planning may seem so far-fetched that something they shouldn't even aspire to even deal with. They just feel they can just do a will and then they will cover care of most of their needs, which is possibly true depending on their assets. But for our session today, I wanted to try and put both of them out there so you'll know exactly what you'll be getting into or listening to. But when I present to our farmers, our clientele, again, I'm not trying to be friends. I try to hit them really hard with life-changing um, ideas and thoughts, to get them in the right mindset for action, not just to hear about it, but to go ahead and get in. If you have not put some kind of plan together or anything in place, I need you to go ahead and move pretty rapidly and get it done, because nobody knows what things may happen in our life, how long we're going to be here, when our life may change. So we'll try to put some things together, give you some ideas of how to approach our clientele, how to get them to move from being reluctant to discuss these type of things with our client, with their parents, their older adults, to just go ahead and find that it's actually necessary and need to be done. So that being further ado, basically estate planning, most people, again, procrastinate or hesitate talking about their retirement or planning for their demise. Most people know that they should, but fail to do so for a number of different reasons. So we want to try and help you get you on the right leg or the right foot off to try and talk to yourself, your spouses, your kids, your aunts, uncles, grandparents, parents, and so forth, that this is something that actually needs to be done. We've done this presentation for farmers, we've done it for cooperatives, we've done it for churches, citizens, homeowners group, because everybody needs to have some kind of plan in place about their demise. So we start talking about estate plans. So who need an estate plan? You probably should have an estate plan. Basically, if you're not just for, it's not just for the wealthy. It really depends on what you value in terms of your assets. So we'll find an estate plan. If you don't have one, you need to put something in place, whether it's an estate plan or just a will, so you have some kind of idea to share with your loved ones or those who depend on you about what should happen to your property at your demise. So if you can't control what happens to your property if you die or become incapacitated, you won't. Because if you pass away, you have no more control over it. But right now, you can put something in place, can have to dictate what happens to you, what happens to your property, who's going to benefit from it, when they're going to benefit from it, how they're going to benefit from it, even if they should benefit from it. We're going to try to go through a little bit of those things today as well. Estate plan makes your wishes clear and help avoid family disputes. I don't care who you are. I don't care what your nationality is. I don't care what your age is, your demeanor, your lifestyle, your religious belief. We all are going to leave this place at some time period. And we all don't know our family members until money comes into the scene. I always use this slogan: when it comes to money, people act funny. So because people do change, because then they have an opportunity to get some assets, get some financial benefits to somebody else's demise, they may try to help coerce that person on to leaving here, because again, they're going to benefit from it. So, but the more we prepare, the more we plan, and more we put some things in writing, that kind of help prevent some of the bickering and fighting over these type of things. I know as a person myself, I've actually seen this happen even within my family, where they were actually fighting over the property of my grandfather when he passed away, and things that he wanted to take place, the certain items he wanted certain people to get, they didn't get those because he didn't have it in writing. And so when it comes to, some people just say, I'm not going to fight over it, they just let it go. but it's not the wishes that my grandfather actually had. So proper estate planning can preserve your assets and provide for your loved ones. Again, it's so important that we try to maintain our property, whether it's land, or farm, our enterprises, our homes. Again, we want to try to preserve those things because they spend years of working hard to put those things together. I mean, some farms have been in the people's families for over 100 years. Some homes that people actually grew up in, now their kids and grandkids are actually living in those homes. So you definitely want to be able to keep those things in the family. Who needs an estate plan? Your spouse isn't comfortable with the financial matters. You have minor children. You own property in more than one state. Financial privacy is a concern. You own a business. Document your wishes regarding medical care. It helps to minimize potential conflicts among beneficiaries when you or no one are able to act as a mourning force, because again, you actually live here. You're not able to take care or keep the peace between loved ones because you're no longer here. So they're at the demise of themselves in terms of how well they're able to keep things going. But again, though, because you failed to put some things in place before you left here. So most people, when they see the word estate planning, the thing that comes to mind is all these different topics that they may think, well, I got to worry about power of attorney, dual power of attorney. I got to worry about, insurances and who's going to take care of the kids of my, who's going to help take care of the grandkids and with their education. Do I need to get a irrevocable trust? Do I need to have living will done and so forth? It just sees so many different headers that come to mind. So it kind of feels like it's kind of like overwhelming. And it may be, especially when they're not familiar with these terms. So what we're going to try to do is try to educate them on the basic things they need to know and prepare them when they go and sit down with a financial person or a person who's licensed or certified in this particular area. They'll know what type of questions to ask, what documentation they need to have already gone and found. And they have started thinking about their wishes and to whom they want those things to actually go to and when they want them to receive it. So we're going to try to help put them along the path. So some good quick questions here, true and false. Basically, you can just jot down the answers yourself and see how well you do. Question 1, any person 18 years of age or older is of sound mind may make a will, true or false? Just jot your answers down. We'll go back through them shortly. Question 2, parent must leave children part of their estate, true or false? Parents must leave children part of their estate. Question 3, a will written in your own handwriting is called a holographic will. A will written in your own handwriting is called a holographic will. 4, a will cannot control the distribution of joint tenancy property. A will cannot control the distribution of joint tenancy property. 5, a codicil must be executed in the same way as a will. A codicil must be executed in the same way as a will. 6, legal separation revokes the disposition of property to the spouse. Legal separation revokes the disposition of property to the spouse. 7, once a will is executed, it cannot be changed. Once a will is executed, it cannot be changed. 8, a person can draft his or her own will. A person can draft his or her own will. Okay, question 1. Basically, any person 18 years of age or older who is of sound mind may make a will. The answer is true. You have to at least be 18 years of age. You can actually put together a will. Even if you have like $10 as an asset, you will be able and should be able to create a will. Question 2, parent must leave children part of their estate, which is false. They do not have to leave their children as a part of the estate, but it'll be a good thing, but it's not mandatory. But again, though, that's why it's so important to put something in place, because if you don't, then the courts will make a decision, and the court do what is called decent and distribution, which means they're going to decently distribute their property to your heirs, and they actually have a tree basically for each different state that says who's to get what at the demise of a person. Question 3, A will written in your own handwriting is called a holographic will. The answer is true. A holographic will is a total handwritten will. I don't like them because again, though, these should only be done if you of age and just cannot get together, put one, have it typed up and done properly. If you like stuck up in the mountains, like if you on a hunt elk up in Colorado mountain, you feel like you're not gonna be able to get out, you can jot something down and they will actually go to appropriate court and they're gonna look at your handwritings and signatures and so forth, make sure that it's a valid that it is you or not. But if you can have the time to do one properly, then I would suggest you do so. A will cannot control the distribution of joint tenancy property. It is true. It cannot control the distribution of joint tenancy property. 5, a codicil must be executed in the same way as a will. Codicil is an amendment to a will. It's not the will itself. It is an amendment, and it does have to go through the same structure in terms of it being properly witnessed and so forth as a codicil. So I would suggest, and it should be done basically if you're just going to do something major. Minor things I wouldn't do a codicil for. I would just redo the will, but some major items, I would go ahead and redo the entire will and put those things in the will itself. 6, legal separation revokes the disposition of property to the spouse. The answer is false. It does not. 7, once a will is executed, it cannot be changed. The answer is false. It can be changed. As long as the person is alive, it can be updated. Question 8, a person can draft his or her own will, which is true. A person can do that. You will actually be the testator or testatrix, basically male, female, but you can do the will yourself. Now, early on in life, most of us young people, including me, we basically fall in love, we get married, and basically our future and long-term lives are not even on our mind. We just start enjoying life, enjoying the benefits, enjoying the honeymoon and so forth. We don't really think about the future. We don't think about our children per se. We just live life to its fullest. But at this early age, when we start, because nobody really knows the extent about how long our life is going to be. So as soon as we gain any ounce of an estate or wealth or property, we should try to figure out what's going to happen to it. Even if we have kids, what's going to happen to our kids if something should happen to both a husband and wife at the same time. So again, at the early age, start to plan what's going to happen to your estate. But sometimes we get to the point and later in life, now we start thinking about, well, what do we do with our property? You know, what are we going to do? How are we going to retire? How are we going to live off our inheritance while we're still here? You know, while we really enjoying life in our retirement, do we go vacationing? Do we go visit all the grandkids around the world? Are we left trying to figure out, you know, how we're going to pay for things? Who's going to get our stuff? Are our kids really interested in our farming enterprise? Do they really want to take over once we decide to give it all up? Now we're going through all these questions, but we should have started thinking about these things a long time ago. Because again, I hate to get to the point of retirement. You want to be able to transfer our property over to the next generation. You know, Mr. Trainer mentioned about succession, about his kids taking over after him. But what if his kids don't want to take over the farm enterprise? So then what happens to the farm? We need to start thinking about that long before we get to the point in our life to transfer that property over to the next generation. So estate planning. So we start thinking about estate planning again. We start looking at all the different things we need to put together to make sure that our property is taken care of, that we have in mind who's going to get what, how they're going to receive it, and when. Because we can actually put stipulations on when they are to receive our property. So we look at our last will and testament. We start looking at our life insurance policy, our 401ks, our full parts of our estate plan, you know, what all goes into it. Then what about the house, the farmhouse? Who's going to get it? You know, do we give it to all of the children or do we give it to one child? Then we give it to all the kids, and is somebody going to live in it, or would they actually sell the house away, you know, and sell the farm also? So again, we're thinking about all these things. At what point in life do we start planning for this point of my life? I say it should be done a lot early on. In terms of when we start establishing any type of assets, we need to put something in place of how we want to have it transferred over to someone else. And in what way? In a way that's going to minimize the amount of money that's going to be spent to make sure this actually goes according to our wishes. So I think you're probably looking at the screen like, man, planning a wedding ceremony? You probably say, what in the world does a wedding ceremony have to do with estate planning? Well, I use it pretty much as an analogy because most young ladies, they start thinking about their wedding at an early age. You know, they're like 5, you know, they start going to somebody's wedding, start thinking, well, one day I want to be married. I want to marry my Prince Charming. I want this type of dress. I want to be out on a farm. I want to be, I want to do it overseas on the beach. I want this type of minister. I want this kind of color. All those different things we start planning of the wedding, the honeymoon, the preacher, and so forth. And we spend years planning these things. But, and well, should I say, let's 2 weeks. It'll plan 2 weeks in terms of the wedding, the honeymoon, the bridal shower, the groom parties, and so forth. It all can cover in a couple of weeks time frame, including the honeymoon. Then after that, you're back into reality and you're married, you start living your lives. So my point is that you spend a whole lot of time planning this 2 week time frame. And then I'm talking about just the marriage. I'm talking about this marriage ceremony, not the marriage itself. Because the marriage goes from years beyond. So my point is this: if you're going to spend that kind of time and effort into planning a couple of weeks time frame, wouldn't it be just as important to plan your estate that's going to have an impact on your family for several generations? Just a point. I would think I should be mindful of that as well. Okay, so a lot of times we start talking to our parents, older relatives about our estate plan or about our demise, and of course most people don't, because sometimes our desires may not be honest. We may be waiting on parents to pass away, or our grandparents to pass. We can get their homes, their estate, and land, and so forth. But some people, that's not the case. They really want what's best for their loved one. Sometimes it's just a little bit difficult to talk about. So as we get older, we start to think more spiritual, getting closer to our demise. We start thinking about our relationship with our Creator. So maybe that's the way to approach our older people about their estate. So you can use the scripture here, Ecclesiastes 12:7, where it talked about, then shall the dust return to the earth as it was, and the spirit shall return unto God who gave it. Talks about their demise. Then Proverbs 13:22, where it talks about a good man leaves an inheritance to his children's children, and the wealth of the sinner is laid up for the just. Now, again, as we get older, we become more spiritual, and maybe this is a perfect opportunity or a perfect way to approach our seniors, thinking about their demise and about them, because you cannot leave an inheritance to your children's children unless you specifically say how it's going to be left. Then the top verse, Ecclesiastes, talked about that you will demise, and then that it will be returned, which means we'll be going back to the earth. That's just our creation. So again, just a method of approaching our seniors, because it is a difficult thing to talk about, and especially seniors, when people approach them in the wrong way, they may be trying to just move them out the way so they can get a touch to their assets. So the thing you consider at your death: who will distribute and who will receive your property, and what will the cost be? Because again, though, when you don't do anything, you don't plan anything, you're going to create more of a cost in terms of those proceedings. Okay, will your property be distributed the way you want it to be done? Of course, you would want it to be, but when you don't put anything in place, then somebody else is going to make those decisions for you. They're going to do what is called decent distribution, which means the courts are going to decently distribute your property to the appropriate heirs based on what they deem is the appropriate heirs. And you may want something totally different. But again, when you don't leave instructions, the court has no recourse but to follow what the law says in that particular state. Will your financial affairs be a public record and at the county courthouse for inspection by anyone who is curious? Now you might say, well, look, I'm deceased. Why am I concerned about my information or becoming public to the general public, you know? But some families are really private, like mine. We don't want our financial position to be made public information, because if you end up going to court through your probate proceeding, which is called a court proceeding, it becomes public information. So to help alleviate that, try to put things in place to kind of help keep down some of the fighting and contesting to keep you from actually going to a probate court. Okay, Some consideration, what if you become incapacitated? Will the lives of your family be placed on hold if you become incapacitated? Because again, you've been incapacitated and now a person is trying to take care of you, but also at the same time period, they're trying to figure out how are we going to be able to function with the loss of this person or with the loss of this person's income. So what do you have in place in case somebody become incapacitated? Like we talk about the different types of insurances. While you're living, what will happen if you cannot act for yourself? A victim of stroke, disease, in a coma, or just incapable of managing your own affairs? Again, what are you going to do? It's one thing to have to grieve and try to take care of a person who's not able to take care of himself, but also trying to figure out how are we going to make ends meet with the loss of that person's income. But again, we're trying to help you get in the mindset of preparing, put things in place so that shows happens, you have something to fall back on, have a plan. And the thing is we want to plan ahead of time in case things happen. And the way things happened this year with 2020, with COVID and so forth, things happened that people never would have dreamed would actually have happened. So this puts you in the mindset that we need to be planned for those what ifs, because what if can happen. COVID-19 is a perfect example of that. Okay, will your affairs be managed by a person of your choice or by someone appointed by the court? Again, decent distribution. If you don't create a will and don't create an estate with a executor or administrator of the estate, then of course the court is going to appoint somebody to make the decision who's going to distribute your property for you and also pay off all your debt. But again, they're going to distribute your property to the appropriate beneficiaries based on the structure that's in that particular state. And again, it may not be your wishes, but if you want your wishes to be carried out, you need to put those things in place. So will your spouse be spending more time with lawyers and in court than in caring for you? Again, it's difficult to go through health and illnesses, trying to take care of someone, and then trying to deal with the legal system, the lawyers, how to be able to manage and have access to your finances and how to manage the estate or manage the farm operations if you don't have the authority to do so. So again, incumbency does happen because we know farmers, they get hurt on the farm. They break legs, they break arms, they get arms caught in things, clothes caught in things. I mean, step in holes, they get bit by snakes. I mean, tractor turnovers and just so forth. And there's so many things that can happen to a person in a farm enterprise that we don't make sure that we cover ourselves, that make sure that our families are able to function beyond us becoming incapacitated. And we don't know how long it lasts. It could be for a couple of weeks, a couple of months, it could be for years. But your plan should be able to address all those possibilities. So again, who will distribute, who will receive your property, and what will the cost be? Again, when you don't put nothing in place and appoint a person to handle this for you as an administrator or executor, the court is going to appoint someone, and they will be the person who's going to distribute your property. And again, it's never going to be the way you want it to be in terms of your wishes. It's going to be based on the law in that particular state. Okay, so who can make both your loved ones and your professional caregivers aware of what healthcare decisions you want made for you when you cannot speak for yourself? Again, it should be on you. Make those decisions way ahead of time and make them aware of what your wishes are. Because again, it's hard to get those answers after the fact. So we will try to put something in place that address all these instances where you can become incapacitated. All right, so planning for your incapacitation, like healthcare directive, same thing as a living will. What it does, it puts your instructions in writing. Now, most doctors today, especially if there's a hint of something serious that you're going to the doctor for, they will ask you, do you have a living will or healthcare director already prepared? Because sometimes you never know. If you go in for something minor, they may find something major while you're there. And they cannot, or they don't want to operate unless they know they actually have the authority to be able to make some decisions about your health and well-being. Or if there's a loved one that's there with you, do they have the authority to make these decisions about your health and well-being? Such as your do not resuscitate, which is your DNR order. Basically what it does is direct them resuscitation measures be withheld or withdrawn. You have made that decision about your own health and well-being and not put that burden on one of your loved ones. That's a horrible place to be in. I've asked that question a number of times in workshops. Who actually have had to make that decision about their loved one? And we had quite a few hands raised. And then I asked the question, how many of you actually hated to have to do this? And all of them raised their hand again. Situation happened here in Warren County in Mississippi. A young man's sister was in a coma for a number of weeks, and the doctor approached him about taking her off the ventilator system and so forth. And the gentleman decided not to take his sister off. He basically would give her more time. And maybe 3 weeks later, his sister basically came out of a coma and started recovering from her health situation. So, but what if they had pulled the plug on her? Then what kind of thing that we're actually doing? That's why it's so important. Don't put that decision on a loved one because they don't know what God is going to do with your life. So let you and God make the decision about what type of directive you put in place. So durable power of attorney for a healthcare or healthcare proxy basically lets you designate an agent to make decisions on your behalf. What it is that basically a general power of attorney makes decisions about your, paying your bills, selling things for you, even away just out of town on vacation. They can run your business for you, at least the financial side of it. But what happens if while you're way out of town and something happened to you and you can't function for yourself? You become incapacitated. You can't function mentally. You're not your usual self. So then that regular power of attorney power will stop that very second. But what you could do is create what we call a durable power of attorney, which is one person who's able to handle your basic business affairs for you. But if you become incapacitated, their power will still be able to handle your affairs for you, even beyond your incapacity. So in terms of a regular power of attorney versus a durable power of attorney, I would recommend you do a durable power of attorney because again, though, you never know what could happen. Even just on vacation, your power of attorney power will stop that very second. So what happens if you do nothing? Then, of course, the law of this state where your property is actually located will determine who will receive your property. It's just the fact. Because they have no other recourse but to follow what the law says because they don't have what your wishes are. Interstate distribution may be financially and emotionally devastating to your loved one. And interstate distribution, what it means, interstate would mean that you actually have passed away without a will. So again, passed away without a will, your property is going to be distributed. Because again, it's going to be emotionally devastating to your loved one because again, they deal with the loss of you. Then to compound that, they're trying to figure out how we're going to take care of and pay for all the expenses of the funeral, pay for the doctor bills and so forth. So again, you deal with all these emotions at one time. It's going to be kind of draining. Then the financial side of it, because then you're going to go to probate court, and the court's going to have to appoint somebody over the estate to make sure all your bills are paid, and then that all of your property is going to be distributed. So of course, that person's going to have to be paid. There's going to be a fee for the court proceeding. So again, it's going to be more financially on the estate. So again, you want to try to help minimize that as much as possible. Then probate or vital will is generally more expensive, of course, because again, if there's a will, you got to hire, at least the court is going to appoint somebody to oversee everything. They have to be paid. The judge has to be paid, of course. And then it's just more expensive of you spending time away from work, time away from grieving or the loss of loved one, trying to deal with all of this. Just a lot to have to deal with. But you can easily kind of help minimize this as much as possible by putting certain things in place. Okay, now you look at the screen, there's a husband and wife here. Of course, they loving each other, and they probably pretty much make majority of all decisions together, which is really good. I have no problem with them making decisions together. But let me ask you the question though. So when it comes to making decisions about your demise, should it be the husband who is the head of the household? Should it be the wife who pretty much is usually the most financial savvy person in the marriage? Or should it be both of them sitting down trying to discuss what's best for the entire family? Most people that I've asked in the workshops, they've actually said it should be the couple. Some people said the man because he's the head of the household. Some people said the woman because she's the most financially savvy of the two. And I don't agree and I don't disagree. But in terms of husband and wife sitting down, making plans of their demise, I have no issue with that whatsoever. My only thing is the negative side of it is that a lot of times women live longer than men. So when the husband passed away, then the wife is still here, and she's now, the assets are now hers, and she's left having to deal with the assets. You know, she's in control of them. So what does she do with the farm enterprise? What does she do with the land? You know, does she now enough to be able to hire a farm manager? What if she need to start taking some financial components out to help pay part of the kids or grandkids tuition? What if she need to help pay her children's college tuition or to get them out of debt type of thing? So you really never really know. So, but it behooves her, if she's gonna be left here after her spouse, she needs to make sure that the state is set up in a way that she's able to manage it without her husband. That's the only reason I say more so the woman for the marriage because of that. But truly, the husband and wife should sit down and help plan out their demise. But just make sure that state is set up in a way that she's actually can manage it. If it involves more interaction with her about the operation side of it, or she just need to be more privy to how to manage it as a farmer herself, if her husband's no longer here to able to support her or to give her advice on what to do and what not to do with the farm enterprise. So what happens if you do nothing? Which means, what happens if you don't put an estate plan together or you don't do a will? So basically what happens, again, the judge who must follow the law and likely will not know your wishes will make those imminent decisions about your estate. Again, they're going to distribute stuff to your heirs based on what's decent, and they're going to distribute to your appropriate heirs, again, based on the state tree. The tree basically is in terms of who's next in line to get your assets, whether it's the kids, the parents, aunts, uncles, nieces, nephews, and so forth. It does vary per state, but it is something that you need to be mindful of. That is not a set way across the country. It does vary per state. Now, more than 70% of Americans who have no estate plan whatsoever pretty much are that don't have an estate plan and don't have a will in place because they put it off for whatever reason they put it off, because they didn't want to plan it, they didn't think they should get around to it, I don't want to think about it, but for a number of reasons they fail to do so, which is a large percentage of the population. So we don't make sure that they are educated enough about it. When they do sit down and speak with an estate planning lawyer or person who's certified in the area, that they know what question to ask and what information they need to have available to put that particular plan together. I'm sorry for that. Okay, so do I need a will? Last will and testament. Do I need a will? The answer is yes, 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 and yes again. And a will is a part of your overall estate plan, but you definitely need to have a will. And we mentioned earlier that even if you're at least 18 years of age, you should put your put a will together. Because if you want to have anything of value and you want to go to another person, this is the best way to make sure it gets to them is to put a will together or an estate plan. So, what is a will and why do I need it? A will is a legal document. It expresses your wishes for the distribution of your property upon your death, and it's the only way to make certain that those who live after you get what you want to leave them. Now, I put on here as an example, pocket watch or grandmother's tin biscuit pan. Now, I put this on here for a reason, because if you have a pocket watch that you may have gotten from your father, they may have come from his father, and it may have come from his father. It may have come from like 5 or 6 generations. Now, if you may take it to a pawn shop, they may tell you it may be worth a couple $100. But you cannot replace something that has been 5 generations transferred down. So it doesn't matter what society value they put on it, it's the value you place on that particular item. And if you value it, you should put everything in place to make sure that that particular item is kept in the family, that it's transferred to the person you want to receive it, in the manner you want to receive it, and when you want to receive it. So that way it's not lost out of the family. And again, I put a grandmother's tin biscuit pan. So it doesn't matter what's a biscuit pan, a wedding dress, some china dishes, whatever it is that you value and you want to go to your loved ones, you need to put that in place so to make it happen. Should I create a will? Again, if you're at least over the age of 18, yes, for sure. Military personnel being employed overseas, yes, you should, because you never know what can happen while you're overseas. Growing wiser and older, but concerned about your current health situation, yes, definitely. Basically, you want your family members to know how you want to be medically treated, yes, for sure. Engaged in a high-risk profession, whether you're a firefighter, police officer, a farmer, any high-risk profession, you should put something in place, because your chances of being, your demise could become, you're high risk, basically. Chances of your demise, you're a police officer on a regular basis. When you leave home every day, you should put something in place. Just living as a human being in today's society, you are a high-risk person. You should have something in place to transfer your property. If you're traveling abroad for an extended period of time, yes, because with the way things are today's in time, you never know what could happen while you're overseas. Undergoing surgery, or will be entering the hospital for any reason, yes. Diagnosed with a terminal medical condition or illness, yes. If you undergoing continuous medical treatment by a physician or a medical team, yes, you should have a will. Again, you want to make sure you cover all the bases, because of those things that could possibly happen. You want to have a plan in place to address each one of those. Okay, I should create a will if I would like to, basically, because if you want to change your mind about your life circumstances changes, definitely have a will, and you can do so. You can change your mind. Then you also can decide who will take care of your minor children. Should be placed in your estate plan. Help you to avoid lengthy probate processes by creating these particular documents, your will or your estate plan. Because tomorrow's not promised, you should put something in place. Minimize your estate taxes, put something in place. Decide on who will oversee your affairs of your estate, put something in place. Decide your estate will be distributed, who's going to receive it, how they're going to receive it, and when they're going to receive it. All these should be a part of your estate. Make gifts and donations. Make sure they know. Avoid greater legal challenges. For sure, they need to know. Disinherit individuals who would otherwise stand to inherit. If you don't want somebody or certain people not to get something from your inheritance or your assets, you need to say so. Because again, otherwise, the court's going to distribute your property based on their family tree that they have for the state of how things should go. They have no other recourse but to do what the law says. And if you have any other recourse of what you want things to happen, you definitely should say so right now. All right. So there are some basic terms that we went over a couple of them, but the thing I wanted to highlight here in the middle of the presentation here, basically, interstate, we said earlier that this means that you actually have passed away without a will. Interstate, prepared, will not prepared. Holographic, it is a form of a will, when it means that a will has been totally handwritten, and it doesn't count for the witnesses. This is just the will itself, totally handwritten will. Now again, something I don't recommend as a last alternative. If you're stuck in the mountains, perhaps maybe that will do. But if you have time to do a will, I would do so and have it drawn up properly, typed up, witnesses, etc. Living probate, again, we need to make sure it's just a process that is a proceeding that the court takes you through to address it. What it does is that the court supervises the process by managing the estate while you're incapacitated. What it is, again, it is a court supervised process for managing your assets while you're incapacitated as a living probate. Now, executor, executrix, all it is basically the court has, if you have not appointed a person to help oversee your estate, or whether it be executor or administrator, the term executor, executrix, in the past, it differentiated between a male and female, but usually they just appoint somebody to oversee the estate. If you don't appoint somebody, then the court is going to do so, which is going to create a more expensive probating process. Self-proven. Self-proven is it can help speed up the process when it comes to accepting a will about contacting your witnesses, basically. What it does is that you will have your will drawn up and you have your two witnesses. And you do all this in front of a notary. and your notary is going to notify that your witness was there and that you was in your right frame of mind when you created this will. This is going to help you when you go, if you have to go to probate court, that means that the person who has passed away, the administrator won't have to go out and try to find the witnesses. They won't need the witnesses because it actually has been self-proven, which means it's been self-certified that you were in your right frame of mind by the notary and when those witnesses signed off on it, that you were, everything was in its right particular order. The term contingent beneficiary. The term beneficiary means somebody benefit from your demise. Contingent means like a backup or a plan B. So contingent beneficiary means a plan B person is a person that receives the assets of a person who dies if the primary beneficiary, for any reason, cannot receive their assets. So it's like you have a beneficiary person, but you also have a plan B person or a backup person. So if something happened to your plan A person, which is your immediate beneficiary, then it's say for instance you and your beneficiary are out together and you have a car accident and you both perish. So then the beneficiary cannot receive your assets. So, but then you have a plan B person, which is your contingent beneficiary, they will receive your assets. You have already thought about, well, what if it happens to me and the insured person? I've already got a person in place to receive those benefits. Again, you're trying to figure out all the things you should do as a plan for your current situation, as well as your backup to possible things that may happen in your life. And again, this year is a perfect example of that. So dying without a will. Basically, dying in state means to die without a will again. When a person dies, typically law and probate codes for the state where your individual live dictate distribution of your assets upon your death. Again, it will vary per state, but of course, the court will decide. They will appoint an executor or administrator of your assets or your estate. They will decently distribute your property to your appropriate heirs. But again, it's going to cost you more. So the more you do yourself, more you plan, more you prepare and put these things together will help to alleviate some of those expenses. All right, so after a person dies, their estate passes through probate court. The length of time of the probate court process can differ significantly depending upon whether an individual had a will or died in the state. Again, the longer in court, the more it's going to cost, more attorneys involved, more money you're going to spend. So again, you try to alleviate the amount of time you're spending in court, the amount of time that you use an attorney, is going to cost more. So we try to alleviate this as much as possible. So again, it's up to you how much you want to spend and how long you want the process to be. Because again, though, if you grieve it and also try to deal with the court proceeding, it's not a good thing to do. And then too, when you don't prepare a will or estate, it takes longer for you to get those access to those estates. I've actually had a couple in Mississippi. Their father had passed away and they could not find a will. They know he did one, but could not find a will. So for a couple of years, they were filing with the family over the estate. So then one of the uncles in Chicago was going through some of the boxes that were sent from Mississippi, of the items that belonged to the brother. He went through the boxes and found the original will and sent it back to Mississippi. Within a couple of weeks time frame from the next court proceeding, everything was actually dissolved. So again, it really shows the power of a will and how important they are for them to have. And this is a good time to take a break, isn't it?
Got a minute left.
We'll go and break here.
So you want to take a break now?
Yes, which is good.
Okay. So team, what we will do is we will take a 15-minute break. Let me round it off. It is almost 2:15. So we'll come back at 1:30 Central, 2:30 Eastern. So we are back from our break. And Mr. Reed has Ms. Coleman joined us. Ms. Coleman, are you on the line?
Yes, ma'am, I am. Can you hear me?
Oh, your Uncle Jerry's farm.
Yes, ma'am.
How are you today?
I'm well. How are you?
I am good. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Absolutely.
I'm just going to go ahead and allow you to speak. We've got about a 15-minute window,
Okay.
and I think Mr. Reed has scripted you. So I'm
Okay.
going to let you go for it and let you have the floor.
All right. Well, good afternoon. My name is Deborah Coleman. I am a graduate of the Small Farmer Agricultural Leadership Institute from Southern University, where Alcorn State University sponsored me as a member. I am a small beginning farmer outside of Jackson, which is rural Hinds County, in a small village called Pocahontas. And I purchased this property about 3 years ago after farming in my backyard as a hobby. And I got into farming after attending the Women's in Ag Conference back in 2015, where I met members and staff of Alcorn State University, and that was Mr. Anthony Reed and Mrs. Carolyn Banks. So they took me under their wings and introduced me to ag and had me to participate in some of their workshops. And those workshops included the FSA borrower training course that was in Laura, Mississippi. Then I also attended the Small Farmers Conference, which included estate planning, budgeting, farm management, risk management, and financial management. And the thing that I've taken away from those training and courses is that we must treat our farm business as a true business and not as a hobby, which would include creating a business farm plan, which includes where we are with our farm, where we would like to go with our farm, and how to get there. Sometimes we take for granted, or I took for granted, that, farming couldn't be that difficult. Being that I had a business background, I could easily walk my way into it. But there's a lot that goes into farming that people who are not involved in farming really don't understand, such as mitigating your risk and understanding what risk is. And that's also what I learned from the meetings and the conferences with Alcorn. So once we understand what our risk is, what our enterprises are going to be, because as you guys know, ag is very broad, and when you attend the meetings, you really realize how much you don't know, but you also get an opportunity to understand what opportunities and what resources are available. And once you narrow down what your enterprises are going to be, another good thing is to take an enterprise analysis, which means we include the cost of what it's going to take for us to actually bring that enterprise on our farms, budgeting what it will take as far as manpower for those particular enterprises, including our own salaries, the overhead, insurance, because with whatever we do, there's going to be a risk, whether it's production risk, financial risk, marketing risk, human resource risk, or even legal risk, because that's a part of running a business as well. Now, with also registering our business and operating as a true business, we need to include registration with the IRS and our local Secretary of State's office, so that in case there's a disaster or if there's resources available through USDA Farm Service Agency, we'll have those proper documentation so that we may apply for funds, but without the proper documentations, a lot of times we will not qualify for those additional programs. Now, the way these classes and the training has helped me as a beginning farmer is that, like I said, there was so much that I didn't understand. And when I was able to transition from hobby farming to a business, I was able to truly create a business plan. Even though it's a live document and we're often having to change or update the business plan, it gave me the foundation that I needed to manage my business as a business, as well as analyze which crops I needed to actually put on my property, because sometimes we like to or would like to grow a particular crop and it doesn't financially make sense. So we need to analyze, will we do that particular crop as a business, or is that something we're just going to do for our immediate family, being that it is a family business? And when I first started, I was only interested in shiitake mushrooms because I lived in an urban area and I couldn't expand. But now that I've bought property or acquired property, another thing that has come into play from attending some of the workshops with Alcorn is estate planning and land loss, because I lost land before through air property. And with the estate planning courses and training that I went through at Alcorn, I've been able to set up a will and a trust for the things that I want to leave at my expire here on earth. So that's been a great tool for me. And I've also been able to share those things with other people who are not only a part of the ag industry, but just people in common who are interested in keeping their property in the family. And since being able to extend, I've broadened my enterprises to livestock. So I've also learned from Alcorn and their training is that record keeping with livestock is still a necessary tool to track what we are producing as far as livestock, the weight, and the cost that goes into managing and raising livestock. And continued training. You know, some of the trainings that I've attended at Alcorn or that was funded or sponsored by Alcorn or USDA, some of them were duplicate trainings. And for me, I don't always grasp everything the first time. So I've attended some of the trainings more than once, because once I attended it the second time, it made more sense to me, being that I'm a beginning farmer and there's so much that I don't know. So when attending it the second time and it was in my area and it didn't cause me to be off the land and I needed to be doing something else, I was able to attend and it made a little bit more sense. So I would say that if you're available to attend multiple trainings, even though you may have attended it before, go ahead and attend again, because I promise you, there'll be something that you'll pick up the second session that you didn't pick up the first session when you attend those trainings. And NRCS and FSA, both agencies under USDA, are resources for us. The NRCS offices are the technical component of it, and FSA is the financial component of it. Get to know your local agency and get to know your representative for your areas and develop a relationship with those individuals, because they will be your first line of assistance when it comes to requesting or needing services through USDA, but both of them are truly needed. And in addition to that, I would suggest that stay in touch with extension services in your area. If it's Mississippi, it's Alcorn State University for the 1890, and it's Mississippi State for the 1862. So whatever your extension service is in your area, whether it's the 1890, 1862, or the 1994 land-grant universities, get to know your members so that when you call and you need assistance, whether it's financial or technical, that you will have a developed relationship with them and become a mentor. You know, I'm a mentor to, although I'm a beginning farmer, there are other farmers who are beginning, who are at the beginning stages of a beginning farmer. So I can help them, as well as being a mentee, be a mentor as well. So those would be some of my takeaway for attending and participating in the financial programs at Alcorn State University and being a small farmer, and how those practices and sessions have helped me on my farm. So if there are any questions, I'm open to that, or if you guys have any comments.
Are there any questions from the audience for Ms. Coleman? And Ms. Coleman, I appreciate you so much for sharing your story with us, because it's a little different than we had Mr. Trainer earlier today. So it's good to hear two different perspectives. One question that I will ask while I'm monitoring the chat box: have you applied for any loans from USDA FSA?
Not as an individual, but I've assisted an individual in Atala County, which is a county that's north of here.
Uh-huh.
I've assisted a couple of applicants with the application process for a microloan. So as an individual, I haven't, but I've assisted and I've gone through that process. And as a matter of fact, I had a young lady to also stop by. She was looking for a loan to buy farmland, but she didn't meet the minimum requirements. And that's one thing I do want to expound on, is that these programs are available, but there are eligibility requirements that we must meet in order to apply. Although they may take your application, please understand what the eligibility guidelines are, because one of the requirements for the microloan is that you have 3 of the most recent year farm experience. If you don't have that requirement, or you have a substitution for one of the years for one of those requirements, one being education or the other being post-educational requirements or significant management experience, they'll take your application, but you won't be eligible for receiving a review of your application for those funds.
Okay.
So just make sure that you guys meet the eligibility and know what the eligibility is, because the young lady who stopped by, she does not have the 3-year farm experience. So one of the things that we suggested to her is that she leased the land for 3 years, because she didn't have the management experience, nor did she have the post-educational experience, so that she could get the 3 years of farming experience. That's a part of the eligibility for the microloan.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
Joy,
Yes, sir.
this is Tarek Bowley. And just to clarify that, that's for our farm ownership microloans, the 3-year farm experience. You don't have to have 3-year farm experience to apply for a regular, for a microloan term or annual. So you only have to have 1 year or a mentor for the microloan, just for a term loan or operating loan. Okay, so that requirement is only for a farm ownership loan to purchase land.
Okay.
And
Thank
it applies to both the microloan and the regular direct loan, which is maximum loan limit of $600,000 as well.
Correct.
And what is the maximum on the microloan?
50,000.
Okay. Thank you. Ms. Coleman, we have a question. Which way is the best one to start with? Livestock or organic beds, or depends where you located, or mix? And Rudy, if I killed your question, you can unmute yourself and ask the question yourself. But I was just reading what you typed. If you
what I'm trying to ask what's the best way to start with? Only organic beds or livestock, or make a mix, or depends how long is your farm, how big it is. Make sense?
Okay, so when I started out, I was in a subdivision. So I started out with shiitake mushrooms on logs, on oak logs, because I didn't need a lot of land for that. So that was the reason I started out with the specialty crop being mushrooms. Now, if you don't have any experience with livestock, I suggest that you quickly get a mentor, because everything that you see on the internet is cute, but it's not reality. And what I mean by that is I started with goats, small ruminants, and I brought them here on the property thinking that it was going to be pretty easy. And even though the goats were less than a year, they were hard for me to manage by myself. So from my perspective, and everything doesn't fit the same for everybody. So what worked best for me was the shiitake mushrooms. And then after I was approved for the NRCS funding for fencing, I got proper fencing, which helped me manage the livestock. So for me, the specialty crop was first, and then adding the livestock worked better for me. Now, I also have cattle, which is not on this property. Somebody else manages that for me. So I had to do what was going to work best for me. And there's no one size that fits all. So you'll have to analyze and take an enterprise analysis of what will work best for you financially, as well as from a management or human resource perspective.
Thank you, Ms. Coleman. And hopefully, Rudy, that answered your question. The next question I have for you, Ms. Coleman, comes from Ann Miller. And she says, to whom do you sell your products? Storefront or restaurants?
Neither, chefs. Because well, specialty crops, chefs will appreciate the hard work that goes into your specialty crop, from my opinion. Now, you'll get more for your hard work from chefs. Now, the secondary choice is supermarkets, because there are certain requirements that we must meet when it comes to safety, produce and farm safety, before you can even place your product into the grocery store, the storefronts, whereas that's not necessarily a requirement for a lot of the chefs.
Okay. Okay. Well, Ms. Coleman, there are no more questions in the chat box, but I do want to say thank you for jumping on and hanging out with us for a little bit. You do not have to leave. We would never kick you out of the group, but we are going to get back into the remaining lesson. Oh, wait a minute, one more question. And this comes from Tess. Is this full-time for you?
Yes, and let me tell you, it was a huge transition for me, and I really depleted my savings. So I would suggest that you're very careful when you transition from a 9-to-5 job to farming, because there are a lot of unforeseen costs and risk associated with it, because production, you can forecast it, but the weather may interfere or interrupt what you planned. So you have to be able to sustain yourself with transitioning from a 9-to-5 to the farm industry, because it's not a constant paycheck every week. So you have to live as a minimalist, truly.
But you love what you do.
I do, and I wouldn't go back to corporate America for anything.
Okay. Rudy asked the question, and he was the one that asked the question about, do you start with organic or livestock? He says, if you have time, how do you find buyers?
Buyers?
For your products that you grow?
Oh, you can send out questionnaires. That was one of the things that I did to the chefs, to determine which products they would like. So that, because one situation occurred to me when I was still doing this as a hobby, is that I got really depressed because my brother passed away, and I had stopped even doing farming as a hobby. And then I was encouraged to start back with it by one of my uncles. So I came back and I was really aggressive that day, and I soaked all of my logs, and I had so many mushrooms that I didn't know what to do. I mean, it was too many for me to store in my refrigerator, which was a good problem, but I had a problem because I couldn't move the product that I had. But I reached out to Alcorn, and they suggested Chef Nick Wallace here in Mississippi, and he purchased all the mushrooms that I had, and that's what he's continued to do.
Okay. So as we shift back into our lesson content, is it safe to say that you are primarily a shiitake mushroom grower, or are there other crops that you grow as well?
There are other crops that I grow as well, but I don't receive the revenue that I receive for the shiitake mushrooms. So I end up giving and providing produce to a lot of the elderly in the community because they enjoy the fresh fruits and vegetables, and some of them can't get out to the grocery stores. So I can't see charging them. So that part of it is still a hobby. But there are parts that of farming that is a business for me.
Okay. All right. Well, I appreciate you, Ms. Coleman. And like I said, we're going to transition back into the last portion of our wills and estate planning. If you want to hang around with us and get some additional training, you might pick up on something new, you're welcome to. But at this time, I'm also going to thank Mr. Reed for extending an invitation to you. And what is it, Uncle Jerry's Farm?
Yep.
I love the name. And I am going to turn the floor back over to Mr. Reed and allow him to continue with his presentation. And thank you again, Ms. Coleman, for stopping in.
All right, thank you.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye.
Well, Ms. Coleman and Mr. Trainer make me look really good. All right, we're gonna continue on. We did finish the slide, but one thing I did want to mention before we move from this slide, of course, down about a will. But if you do have a will, then of course the court's gonna have to authenticate your will. And once they do that, they authenticate it in probate court, and they will distribute your property according to your last wishes. But of course, if you don't, then they have to take a longer process of trying to find out who are the appropriate heirs through appropriate notification through the public notary service like your local papers and so forth, for a window of time to see who will actually respond, to make sure that they're not leaving anybody out. It just make a lot more complex process. So it's better for you to go ahead and make those steps yourself to alleviate any type of friction and misunderstandings about where you want your wishes to be carried out. So I mentioned earlier a couple of times about the trees. What I mean by the tree, again, though, it is in terms of how each state had depicted who is to receive your assets. It may start out with your spouse or your domestic partner, children, grandchildren, parents, siblings, and so forth. So it really depends on the state you're actually in. But once there is no will, they do this what's called decent and distribution, so they will decently distribute your property to the appropriate heirs based on this type of style of tree for your particular part of the country. So again, what is probate? It's a legal court proceeding in which your last will is accepted by the courts. And again, it's authenticated to make sure that it is your true last will and testament. Its terms, conditions carried out under court supervision. Again, probate changes title of property, supervise the payment of your creditors, where controversies over your will and your estate are actually decided. Again, you want to try to minimize the amount of time you're spending in probate court, and everything you can do to try and avoid probate court as much as possible. Because again, it is time consuming and it can be financially taxing for you as well. It also provides validity of your will if one exists. It has to choose the estate administrator or executor or representative of your estate. It total of all of your assets, both in and out of the estate. Pay all of your applicable estate taxes and other debts. It also identifies all heirs and other relatives distributing and remaining assets to the heirs as described in your will or in your intestates. So basically, what is a living will? And there is a difference between just a regular will and a living will. And the key term there is the first part, living, which means this person is alive. What it does, it allows for your spouse or parent or someone else to make decisions for you if you are mentally or physically unable to make these decisions for yourself. Only allow others to make health decisions for you, including the right to die or discontinue medical treatment, or it does not allow them to dispose of your property or take care of your business because you are away and unable to do so. And a lot of times, this is such a crucial thing. I had the misfortune of being in the hospital, in the ICU waiting room. when my father was there, and I had the unfortunate opportunity to sit there and listen to two different families debate over what's going to happen to their loved one's property. Now, one couple on the one side of the room, it was like four brothers and one of the wives to one of the brothers, and they were debating on pulling the plug or not. Of course, they started going through, you know, what did one say, what did two say? The first brother said, you know, don't pull the plug. The second brother said, don't pull the plug. Third brother said, don't pull the plug. Then the fourth brother's wife, she said, we should pull the plug. So then what did the fourth brother do? He said, we should pull the plug. So, because he basically he had influence from his wife. And we don't know what her reasons were being for wanting to go ahead and pull the plug. They may have been a couple who was, you know, taking care of the father for years, feeding him, cleaning him, taking him to the doctor's office, for whatever reason that she decided this. We don't know what those reasons are. But again, you put yourself in a position to where people are making decisions about your end of your life, and we don't know what their reasons and motivations may be. So what helps to try to alleviate that is that you make a decision yourself about your own demise in terms of how you want to lead this world if that choice does come before your family. Then on the other side of the room, it was three daughters, and they were discussing mom was back in the ICU, and they were debating also about should they pull the plug or not on their mom. I mean, one daughter said we should not pull the plug. Second daughter said we should not pull the plug, and the third daughter said, well, I guess I'm gonna go ahead and move my stuff over to mom's house today because she's not coming back there. So again, her concern was not mom's well-being. Her concern was pulling the plug so she can get her moving to mom's house and start benefit the fruits of mom's labor, basically. So again, you never know how people are going to act, even if they're your kids, in terms of when it comes to wealth, access to finance or money. Again, to alleviate that, you try and put something in place by making the decision, creating a living will for yourself, so that nobody be forced to make the decision on your behalf. Because sometimes they make these decisions, it may not be for your well-being, it may be for theirs. Okay, so also there's for a living will, it has several different names. It could be called a living will. It could be called an advanced decision. It could be called an advanced directive. It could be called an advanced medical directive or advanced healthcare directive, directive to physicians, or personal directive. Pretty much all are basically the same. They just go by different titles, all meaning the same thing, is that you are making a decision in advance about your demise if it comes down to being on a life support, resuscitation, and so forth. And it's just a horrible place to be in to have to make a decision, because again, nobody knows what God's plan is for us of our lives, but we've been placed in a position to make those decisions on our loved one. And sometimes you really don't know. It's not maybe the right decision, it may not be the wrong decision, but we'll never know if you pull the plug. So as an individual, to keep having to put that burden on our loved ones, let us as individuals get our farmers as well as ourselves, make the decision about our own lives and create a living will to specify what our demise options are. Okay, so know your preferences when it comes to that. So with the advanced directive, your family members have healthcare providers know your preferences about organs or tissue donations, extended artificial life support, the use of dialysis or breathing machines, resuscitation if your breathing or a heartbeat stop. What should happen if your doctor determines that there's no recovery? When and if would you refuse medical care? All these should be things that you should start thinking about and make your families aware of, and you should be fully understanding of yourself. So a simple living end of life preferences could be, if you become terminally ill or permanently unconscious, what should they do? Do you want treatment that would keep you alive but not cure you? Do you want food and water provided through tubes or an IV? Do you want dialysis to regulate fluids in your kidney stops? Do you want antibiotics or antiviral medicine to fight infections? Do you want your heart to be restarted with CPR or a defibrillator? Do you want a mechanical ventilator to help you breathe? And for how long? Does your religious belief prohibit certain life-sustaining procedures? I know some religions don't like taking blood, other people's blood and inject into another person's body. So it depends on your religious preferences. And how do you feel about amputation or blood transfusions? All these, again, are decisions that you need to be mindful of and think of and plan for based on your beliefs and your spiritual positions. So what does it mean to be permanently unconscious? So this is when your doctor and another doctor, maybe one or more doctors come together, basically somebody who's actually qualified and making those diagnoses, agree with all reasonable degrees of medical certainty. Now, medical certainty, not just have an opinion or thought, but medical certainty that you can no longer think for yourself, and you can no longer feel anything, and you can no longer knowingly move, or you can no longer wave or be aware of being alive. So these are basically permanently unconscious that doctors have to come to these decisions. And then if they do, that's when they will approach you or approach your family to see what decision has been made, if there's a living will or if the family member has the authority to make those decisions. Because sometimes the living will, if it doesn't specify what to do other than consult my son who basically runs my affairs, let him make that decision. But really up to the individual what they would like to happen. Of course, the doctor believes that this condition will last indefinitely without hope of any improvement. If this is a lifelong illnesses that are never going to improve, it's like they call it permanent unconscious, then maybe you need to start thinking about what should I do if this is going to be the case. So basic life-sustaining treatment, it is life-sustaining treatment includes drugs, medicine, or medical procedures that would help keep you alive, but not cure you. Those who may refuse life-sustaining treatment may prioritize quality of life in the final days of being alive. So again, it's all up to you, such as your, CPR, resuscitation, or the use of the defibrillators to restart your heart if it stops. Mechanical ventilation, oxygen machines that deliver oxygen to the body. I mean, those type of things you have to decide in terms of those sustaining treatment that you'll be willing to go through for them to keep you here. But if you have been told that there's no recourse, that a person's going to be permanently unconscious, there is no way of bringing them back, then you may have to make that decision. So, life-sustaining treatment again are tube feeding, IVs, or tube delivery will deliver nutrients and fluids to the body. Dialysis, where the kidney stop, dialysis remove waste from the body. Antibiotics fight infection with medicine or left infections to run its course, basically. Even if you not want life-sustaining treatment, you can make sure your doctor will still administer comfort, care, or leave that decision up to one of your family members. Or they may just want to keep you comfortable until the Lord decides to take you home. Just depend on what your preferences are. Now, we start talking about the will, living will, estate planning, and so forth. Majority of these items need witnesses. And witnesses usually two. And then two, they must follow basic couple of criteria or characteristics. It must not be related to you by blood or marriage. They must not be named in your will. They may not inherit possibly your estate, and they cannot be in your tenant position or a health facilities. Because again, somebody who might be a witness to your estate or your will may say that you was perfectly fine. There was no problem with your mental thinking, your mental faculties, because they want you to leave here, and they may have been listed in your will or estate in a positive way. So they may be encouraging you to go ahead and leave so they can get their hands on your assets. So in order for the court to kind of help minimize this or alleviate this, is that they put these restrictions that a person cannot be a relative or by blood by marriage, not named in the will, may not inherit anything from the estate, and then of course may not be physician or the health facilities where the person actually resides. So we talked earlier about the power of attorney. Someone who allows someone else to dispose or sell your property, make bank deposit contract with you, and even if generally to run all your matters of your business while you're away or unable to do so. We talked about the dual power of attorney, basically somebody who's going to be able to basically just handle your basic affairs for you. And then if you become incapacitated, they will be also be available to make decisions beyond your health situation, which is really, really good to have, just to be on the safe side. Again, you're always looking for your plan B situation, because again, though, we never know really what could actually happen. So we talked about earlier about the wheels too. One thing I left out too is that wheels are not just for people who has a couple of assets, and estate planning ain't just for people who has billions of money. It's for everybody that has some form of wealth. I mean, there are some famous people that actually have passed away that didn't even have a will. What's the gentleman's name that did the? He passed away without a will. So he's basically his wife is now trying to get access to handle things for him, Chadwick Boseman. But again, though, him, Martin Luther King, Jimi Hendrix, Pablo Picasso, Howard Hughes, the singer, Bob Marley, Kurt Cobain, you probably know him, the songwriter, singer, Tupac Shakur, Salvatore Philip's son, you probably know him as Sonny Bono. I mean, but a lot of people that fail to do so, some educated, some not, in terms of fully knowledge of their financial affairs. Michael Jackson, Prince had issues with their estate, just a number of people. So again, we should take the heart to try to put something in place to try to keep from opportunity for our families to be fighting over our property and so forth. But again, the way you do that is to put something in place that differentiate between what you want to happen and to minimize fighting and arguments as much as possible. Because again, when it comes down to money, people do act funny. So again, we talk about decent distribution. If a landlord died without having a will, the person died interstate. When this happened, the real and personal property is distributed to the heir by someone appointed by the court, which will not know your wishes, which must follow the law of that particular state. Again, we talked about interstate already here. So where does your asset go? Now again, in different states, the process is differently. This is just one general form of how the property is actually distributed. So if there's someone that's actually passed away and they have a spouse and children, so then the descendant has a spouse and children, the descendant assets are divided into equal shares for the spouse and the children. So that then if the descendants of any deceased child inherit that child's share. So again, if there's a property and there's a spouse and kids, if they get an equal share. Then if one of the kids have actually passed away and they've had kids, it goes to their offsprings. Then if there's no spouse and there's no children, then in Mississippi, they start looking at the parents, sibling, and descendants of those siblings in terms of who is to receive the asset when there is no will in place. Then after that, it goes on further down the line. Look at the aunts, uncles, nieces, and nephews, and so forth. Because again, they want to make sure that the property is actually distributed to the rightful heirs. They will make sure they actually give to somebody. Okay, joint tenancy with the right of survivorship. A type of joint ownership of property where two or more people own a title to an asset together and simultaneously. When one owner dies, the surviving owner or owners immediately become the new owner of the property. Basically what it is that someone actually, if the property is actually owned by two entities, two individuals, sometimes it is done with a spouse. Then one pass away, it automatically transfer over to the other owner. And it doesn't necessarily have to go to probate court. It's actually transferred immediately without probate court. It can be done with bank account, investment account, stocks, bonds, businesses, interest, even real estate. But there's some pros and there's some cons too, because with the way it is like this, you will not be able to sell that property like that without the consent of the other person. Then there's another way too, in terms of being obligated by other person's debt if the debt is owned by debt owed to that particular piece of property. So, but one way to alleviate that though is to look at another option, tenancy in common, which lets each party own one half or the term percentage or fraction of the ownership too. Each person has the right to sell their share without the other person's approval or consent. But however, the ownership though asset does not automatically transfer. That's the only problem though to this particular form of tenancy in common. It doesn't automatically transfer when one person passes away. but it passed according to the deceased person's will. So that's how it's actually transferred. But in the general, with joint tenancy with the right of survivorship, one person passes, it goes to the other owner. But with tenancy in common, it does not automatically transfer, but it does give a person an opportunity to be transferred through a person's will or estate planning. And then two, asset can be accessed by the other owner if one person becomes disabled or even dies in the tenancy in common. So you need to look at the benefits of what your operation or what your family will need will help you to make a decision in terms of what's best, whether it's a tenancy in common or joint tenancy with the right of survivorship. Now, beneficiary, we talked about that earlier, about somebody who benefit from your demise. Then if that person is not around to receive the benefit, then you have like a plan B person, which is a contingent beneficiary. Because sometimes the beneficiary and the actual and the decedent may die in an accident together. So it would leave the asset or the property to a backup person, which is a contingent beneficiary. And this person's already lined up to receive it as well. So there's something called payable on death, or POD, which is really a very good option that you actually put it on your bank account, savings account, and so forth. What it does is that you put this person on your account, and if you should pass away, this POD person will be listed on the account. They will have access to your asset immediately. All they would have to do is take into your bank would be a copy of the death certificate, and they should be granted access to that particular funds. And it could be a good thing because, so what happens if you actually have passed away and you out in, say, Colorado, and you wanted the body brought back to Mississippi or Georgia or Alabama or Louisiana, but the person, your family member don't have the funds, but you had it in your checking or savings account. So, but I'm listening to the POD person. All I do is get me a death ticket from Colorado, and I'll be able to go to our bank there or here and to have access to that money, and then make arrangements to have your body transferred to Mississippi. So it's just the idea of how soon that you want to have access to those funds will be a good opportunity to have a person list such a POD account. Now, but be mindful though, who you get to be a POD on your account. I have a situation in Mississippi where a young lady had put her daughter on her account as a POD person. The daughter was a teenager. She actually went to the bank and asked for access to the account and was granted access to the account and withdrew money from her mom's account. Problem was, mom was not deceased, and the bank did not ask her for a copy of a death certificate. So the bank was responsible for replacing the money back into the account, and they did, and they refused to prosecute the young child because she was a teenager, and two, they were more at fault, just as much at fault as she was, because if they had asked her for the appropriate documentation, she wouldn't have been able to draw anything from the account. So they were just as liable or responsible as the young lady was. The pros, again, is it creates ease, access to getting access to the fund. There's no limit on how much money that you can leave this way. Designated beneficiary for a bank account costs nothing. And then too, it's easy for the beneficiary to claim the money after the original person has actually passed away. And the con that is that you will not be able to name a contingent beneficiary. You'll have a backup person to your POD. One person that you have POD in your account, that's going to be it. There's no backup. And then too, some people might call this a poor man's trust, basically. Again, your assets will have somebody able to get it. All they have to do is just provide a copy of death certificate, and they'll be able to function. All right, so there's sometime in life we get to a point, some adults and some seniors, or even some young people, that we're not able to handle our own affairs ourselves. Sometimes we need somebody to step in and to be a conservative for us. Basically, it's necessary to petition a court to appoint a legal guardian or person if a person is not able to function or handle their own affairs. So what it was, you have a physical or mental problem that prevent them from managing their own financial affairs, who has no person already legally authorized to assume responsibility for them, or well, the kind of a system with financial management will not accurately protect them. And it does say limited conservatorship, which means there is some limits. Because some things, if the person is not totally 100% unable to handle their affairs for them, then they will get a limited conservatorship, which means that some things the person will be able to do themselves, and some things they will not be. Depending on the health situation of the individual, you may need a total conservatorship, or it may be just a limited conservatorship when the person is still have some functions of their faculties, or be able to just get around, but just not able to handle all their affairs. So you can apply for what's called limited conservatorship. And you are going to need an attorney and a doctor, because again, you're already going to go to court. You're going to need the doctor to validate that this person's mental faculties are statement of health in terms of how much assistance they're going to need. And then you're going to need an attorney to help put this package together before you do go to court to help you to apply for conservatorship of an individual. This is actually mostly done with seniors, you know, because they can't get around and handle affairs anymore. Then sometimes too, this is actually done with a young person, like a teenager who has involved in a major accident and they can't function for themselves. But you may need a limited conservator to come in and take care of responsibilities for that child.
Mr. Reed.
Yes.
So I'm just going to make the executive decision that we are going to pause here because we are over time. I guess when I gave you guys those 2 breaks, we kind of went over time. So I apologize to everyone for that. And we will pick up tomorrow at 11 a.m. for day 3. We will do the conclusion of will and estate planning with Mr. Reed. We also have identity theft, succession planning, and savings and investment. And tomorrow is actually a shorter day than today, so we will not go over, but I do want to be respectful of your time and other things that you may want to do on Veterans Day. So with that being said, I'm going to shut down our day 2 and just say thank you. Enjoy your Veterans Day, and I look forward to seeing everyone tomorrow.
Thank you.